Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ousman. How are you? Please let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I assume you guys can hear me loud and clear. I assume you guys can hear me loud and clear. The program, I'll try to make it brief, but I'm afraid it might not be. I'm afraid it might not be because it's a loaded program. It's a very loaded program. But before starting this program, I just want to share my sad condolences to Pa Ousman Youth of Gambia Talent TV at Washington State. The death of passing away of Fatou Samba. Fatou Samba, which the message which we received this morning is quite sad and sorrowful for that young, lively life, very impactful life to be taken. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And we are praying for Fatou Samba. We're praying for the Samba family. We're praying for the Juve family, Paos, and the entire Gambia for that matter. Fatou Samba had a short life, but a very impactful life in Gambian, would be in Gambian history. Very impactful life in Gambian. Fatou contribution is immense. She was very genuine, very active, very articulate, and she left a lot of memories on many Gambians. The Gambia, the diaspora the semester program and many other programs wouldn't be what it is without Fatou's charisma and the joy she brings up in interacting with people, with respect, understanding, tolerance, and everything else. I have never spoke to Fatou. I never spoke to Paos, but these are exemplary people. Paos and family. I mean, we pray for them, for Allah to give them the patience to accept the decision taken by the Almighty Allah. We continue to pray for Fat Samba for the impact he has in our lives, and pray for her to Jannah to be her final resting place. And the other shock and sad sorrow we had is in the case of the young Gambians that are involved in the accident. That are involved in the accident in Libya. I cannot watch that video. I can't watch that video. I have to block to imagine, try even to imagine the pain those young Gambians are going through. The feeling of abandonment, understanding their struggle, their suffering, just to try to make a life for themselves and their family, and to contribute to their country's development. And they happen to be unfortunate to be where they were. That's not their final destination. That was not their final destination. And God knows how much they suffered there before this accident. And for this accident to happen to them, As I said, I don't want to even imagine the pain. But again, not only the pain they have suffering now and what, but we don't even know how they're going to end up with the scars and everything else continues because of the Libyan people. Libyan people claiming to be Muslims have abandoned them. We haven't seen any reaction. And I can tell you, God forbid, if it happens in any of these so-called civilized societies that many people criticize for being indifferent, the reaction would have been completely different, regardless of their status. Regardless of their status. But I don't want to go deep in it. It's a very, but we continue to pray. And we have seen the communique from the government, but we hope the government will be very proactive to get to them as soon as possible through the Libyan authorities or through the Gambian, if we have any consulates around there, or to reach out to any other networks the government might have reached, or Gambians who know the area and have any resources around that area, or Gambians who can organize for resources to reach these young people so that their suffering can be minimized, so that their pain can be minimized, so that the to avoid, in fact, infections and the pain and scars to stay longer. Guys, you just bear me a minute. I think we continue to pray for them, but let me start this program. Assalamu alaikum. I want to respond with a brief analysis to the politics of oil that Jammeh have thrown to us. The politics of oil, the latest Jammeh have thrown to us. I want to do briefly with the known, the unknown, the accountability, the lack of transparency, and the politics of the oil. My take on this is more of politics than anything of substance. It's of politics of anything of substance. And I've listened to it this morning. I had to listen to this morning. I had listened only one audio before last night, and that audio was to deal with where Jammeh was literally agitating Sonko, which I found to be loaded. And I know most Gambians just pick the politics of the oil and run with it. But I think there's more substance about targeting Sonko in that statement. I think I'll try to analyze to see how much we can learn from that. But we'll come to the oil itself and why that agitation. And there's an element, other audios, which the other ones I'm not going to touch, dealing with him throwing people out of so-called party or no party. I was just going to point to something about that, but I'm not wasting my time on that. But there's another audio he talks about element, the GPMB saga. I'll touch on that. That would expose the amount of lies that Jammeh put out there, knowing that most of our people are not aware of, we're not aware of some of the things or what transpired behind the scenes, or even before us, because of the state of dictatorship we were. Now he thinks now he can take it and manipulate the system. But again, this is something we allowed. For Jammeh still to be relevant is the failure of the transition. But the reasons behind the audio. Let's deal with this audio first. The reasons behind the audio. Why did Jammeh release this audio? We understand that's his only means of communication now. We understand that's his means of communication now to Gambians, because he doesn't have any international audience. What he has is domestic audience. And important to note that that domestic audience, he perceived that he have support on the ground, yes, but he understands one thing, not the amount of supporters he have on the ground. He understands how volatile we are because of the inactive government, the effective governance we have, ineffective governance in place. Then he have an objective, and his objective is to destabilize us in many ways. Destabilize us to not to have a trajectory on anything else, so that we will keep busy with other things and forget about him, not to progress to the things that we need to do to deal with him, to hold him to account. For him to thinking that by agitating certain things, it might bring destabilization, so much so that probably the what people call the sleeper cells, he has my act and take an opportunity, and thinking that he's going to benefit from that. And this is why we have to be very careful. If we look at history, all dictators that are not under custody, or even they're under custody, or all dictators, until they die, even they will try everything to get back to the people, to harm them again, to get back to the people, to get back and regain power. Jammeh getting power is out of the way, but Jammeh destabilizing Gambia is still a possibility, and we will not blame anybody for that right now. The government we have for 8 years, and if there are failures in reforms and in fact continuing many aspects of what Jammeh represented for the Gambians, divisiveness, corruption, and so on and so forth, and trying to even get to stifle our freedoms and human rights, which they're trying, but we are resisting. Yeah, that's the only reason. And if we question that, the reason behind the audios, it's nothing progressive, but it's everything about Jammeh. It's not about care for Gambia, care for Gambians and Gambian future. That's a lie. We know what we lived through 22 years. And I'll keep on saying this. What transpired at the TRRC is, it's not more than 50% of what have happened. There's so much unknown. There's so much unknown. And if I say so much unknown, these are narratives that individuals have. But so much unknown of, in fact, if we evaluate the impact it has on generations of Gambians, it's just so much. If we want to calculate what Jammeh have done to us, I don't think we'll get to the end of it. But it will at least give us a sense of direction. Sense of direction. That's why we should be very careful to understand where this is. We can sense this sense of desperation in Jammeh's approach. And obviously this will happen. For someone to, have an absolute control or rule for 22 years with all the luxuries and everything, billions of dollars, millions of dollars, properties everywhere, influence many other places beyond the borders, able to get involved in all other things, and one day everything stops. Now, not everything stops now. Literally, there's no family around you. You're technically not in touch with any family because he doesn't talk to most of his family members. And there's suspicion with anybody he deals with. There's nothing like the people, might assume that these people are his loyalists, but he himself is paranoid. He doesn't trust anyone. Now he's destitute, in Equatorial Guinea and waiting for uncertain future. It's certain to him. This guy is desperate. We should understand that. Then, and the presentation, the timing of the video. If you listen to the video, it's as he is talking to someone else. But, that person is not responding or anything. Then Jammeh took an effort to think about this audio he's going to release. and recorded it himself alone, pretending that he's talking to someone, or he has someone over the line who he would dictate to just be silent. Because I cannot understand any human being. We know even people like Rambo would say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. But no acknowledgement from what he is saying or contribution from the other person. That person must be a dummy. For Jammeh to tell him, you have to be a dummy. Just quiet. This is what I want to do. You see, that will tell you there's a propaganda here. This is what to do. Just silence. Then Jammeh would bring out his thoughts, his calculated moves. Yeah, he's trained. He was trained to do that. To do subversive, to try to be subversive. The timing of the audios are very interesting. Interesting in one sense. Why for almost 8 years, Jammeh did not talk about oil? That's very significant. Why for 8 years? If he had information that was valid and necessary, would it not have stopped it happening? He would not have said anything. You think, but anything. And if he's really concerned, why when he left and everything, he did not tell us? He did not raise concerns. For 8 years, he has been ranting, saying and everything. When Macky Sall was there, everything else, he kept quiet. Until now. Why now? That's one thing to note. The timing of not saying anything all these years. Why now? He would know best. What we do is analyze, try to think the way he thinks and present that, not how we think. Why now, in a sense? We know there's a total, all these few days, something have been very, for a few weeks actually, probably a few months now, something is very daunting to him. In a sense that he's seeing a disintegration in the little bit of political capital he has in the Gambia, the so-called NATO alliance. The so-called NATO alliance. Because he have realized he's been away too long. And these people now are on survival mode. The case of Yankuba Toure losing his total freedom, the appeals and everything, is significant. Because Jammeh understands legal strategies. Jammeh understands what the Gambia government is doing with Yankuba Toure. The only reason Yankuba Toure was prosecuted because he refused to testify. And he was prosecuted for that, for the case of Korosisi. Now they got Yankuba Toure where they want him. Now what the Yankuba Toure, he would have to spend the rest of his life in prison if he is not pardoned. If he is not pardoned. Now, Jammeh is thinking that these people have gone far. He knows. To take me for prosecution. Either way, from the international or somewhere. Now, Yankuba Toure would be one person that would have everything to gain to see that he testify at his best to regain his freedom. You think if Yankuba Toure have that opportunity, you think Yankuba Toure would continue to be foolish to refuse to testify? Because the reason he refused to testify before, it was Fatoumata Jammeh Edward Singate, and Yaya Jammeh that fooled him to not to testify, and other so-called APRC guys. And he became the test case for them. And when that happened to him, Edward decided to comply, to buy his time for his freedom, to buy time for his freedom. You think he's stupid again to continue that? That's not only thing. He have seen the disintegration of the so-called NATO alliance. There's a lady, one of the lady MPs is already gone to Barrow. I mean, literally, we know how they go, how they sit on the fence, how they start to align themselves with these things. And one of the things, oh, I'm just joining, I'm going to support for development and all nonsense, or, I can't remember even the name of the lady. But not only that, The other one have already moved, the other male MP, saying that he's going to be a presidential candidate. He's lying. He knows he's not going to be a presidential candidate. He just doesn't even aspire to be a presidential candidate. It's two things. You might aspire to really want to be, and probably you don't have what it takes because you are delusional to know that you have nothing to take to become a presidential candidate. But this is no. He fabricated this to build a leverage. They all have seen the end of things. The trial of Michael Correa is another indication to where we will be leading to with Jammeh. Now, the issue about this MP, he's building the leverage. Because now he's an MP, he's having this luxurious now that MPs have, the allowance and all these kind of things, sitting allowance and all these things. He wants to maintain that. Because without an MP, he doesn't have the capacity to live the life he's living now. Now, what he's going to do is, he can hold on to this until election time and then sell the leverage. Then he can go to Barrow, or if there's a so-called coalition, if there's a coalition that he thinks is likely to win, he might join that coalition to come as if I am a presidential candidate or I'm an aspirant president candidate. Now, this leverage, I'm coming here, what am I going to bargain with? Or he go to Barrow, what am I going to bargain with? Now to support you. Because now I can bargain with, okay, you have to give me some bit of money so that I can join your campaign. I can support you. But again, you have to guarantee me that next, if we win next round parliamentary elections, you're going to sponsor my candidature. And if I fail these things, you're going to appoint me. That's what they do. And the same he can bargain with if there's a coalition that he thinks is going to win. Thank you, Amikoli. Thank you. You see, this is what he did. And Jammeh is seeing that through. The only reason he's holding onto the base, that's what you call a political base. Every rebel would need a political base, or wannabe rebel, because he's a wannabe rebel. Would need a political base. This is a reason to think of the timing. He will feel that I need to re-energize my base, or I need to re-energize still the Gambians, some of the Gambians that still believe in that I can make miracles. Or I can come out now, because there's a lot of political tension now. The government is on its back foot with the Jammeh Commission, the government is back foot with other failures. Now let me just throw this to stir up. We might look at that to say that's the timing of the audios. But what is embedded in the audios, apart from the oil? The oil is just a red meat being thrown in to pack of wolves. What is embedded? What did Jammeh want to say, but could not say it directly? Now he have to say it indirectly by bringing in Ousman Sonko. We'll have to look at that when we look at the speech, the audio itself. When we move from, I'm going to do that soon, but when we move from that, we're going to look at the circumstances evidence and the related expert evidence. When we look at the oil issue, we'll look at the circumstance evidence that any layperson capable can see that is factual is here. We can relate that to evidence that, reference it to countries, reference to events and stuff like that as layperson. But again, what I mean by related to expert evidence, we can relate to expert evidence because of we are capable of doing a little bit of research to see certain things and say, okay, this is what happens. This is how oil is created. And this is the likely, geology, or this thing of the Gambia, then it's likely this, that. That's relating to expert evidence. But obviously, that's where we need the expert evidence itself. That's the absolute truth. All the other things is part of the truth. The absolute truth that what we want to have, not what Jammeh is trying to do. And then we map the way forward. What what Gambians need to do? And that's involved the civil society, involves politicians, involve individual Gambians who are capable of interacting or doing whatever they can do to bring about the truth. But ultimately, my point is here, I keep on saying this. The final solution to this problem is to bring about a meaningful change, a government that would, able to, manage the situations, all the situation, the entire situation we have here, especially the politics of oil. Now, let's just move on to, I've taken some notes here from the audio that Jammeh released. And I'm going to refer to the audio that he dedicated to Ousman Sonko. I think that is heavily politically loaded. That's where he decided to drop the oil exploration stuff. I tell you, many people will not realize Jammeh is a trained intelligence officer. The nonsense that Jammeh went to America, did a military police training, that's a lie. And part of, the way the gendarmes are trained, part of their training involved not military intelligence ourselves, but they are prepared in a way due to their policing duties to able to deal with issues relating to intelligence. They have a rounded understanding of intelligence gathering and, evaluating information and so on, just as many police officers do, or even journalists do. But for Jammeh, the reason I say specialist, and he was trained in many aspects. That's why he is capable of doing this. He have a lot of understanding, and naturally, he's a very corny person. Naturally, he is. And, and a pathological liar, what do you expect from him? Now, one thing we note that Jammeh decided to center on Ousman Sonko. I know many people will say, yeah, because of, we all know Senegal, Ousman Sonko is the ultimate leader, Jammeh is just a ceremonial leader and stuff like that. Yes, that's a good argument. I won't take it from anyone else, but I think, with supported evidence would point to Jammeh is not doing that because of Ousman Sonko is seen as Senegal's, ultimate leader, and Jammeh is a ceremonial leader. That's not the point. I'll make that listen. But the way, if you evaluate the way he goes to point to the character of Ousman Sonko, you understand it's a targeted move towards Ousman Sonko. And I will say this because I'm privy to a lot of intelligence for so many years now. Before and even especially after this thing, Jammeh left. And most of that intelligence was created by people who were making money. From Jammeh, people who were making money from the Senegalese government, Macky Sall. Because Macky Sall was so desperate to have something. And the most, you see, all these salacious accusations and other things could not damage Sonko. One thing that could have damaged Sonko was to have not even evidence, but to have a good, dodgy, walk-out intelligence associating Sonko with Casamas, associating Sonko with Jammeh. I'll come to that. The character of Ousman he went for, questioning Ousman, okay, because how Senegalese and many people have seen Ousman as a good Muslim and stuff like that. Up to the point he's saying that, he's referred to as a wali. And he's always seen as a good Muslim. But if he's a good Muslim, why did Ousman Sonko not hand over the wealth of Gambia? I'll come to the I'll just reference it because Jammeh is trying to make a point that the oil explored in Senegal is entirely Gambian oil. That's his point. That's why he's saying that Ousmane Sonko did not, when he came and found that being a good Muslim, being a good Wali, why he did not hand it over to Gambia. You see, that's why we Gambians should be very careful and not be emotional about these things. I know it's easy to be, your patriotism steam might get to your head and your emotions and stuff like that, but does it make sense? Because we all take over and hand it over. Ousmane Sonko, Senegal doesn't have a functional government. However powerful Ousmane Sonko is, I tell you, there's a functional government in Senegal. He went on, and Jammeh saying that he is a person of principles. Jammeh saying that he's a person of principles. You see the politics are down there. Now he's measuring up to Ousmane Sonko. He's a person of principles. That he will not pray for Ousmane Sonko for bad or wishing him bad, but he will not pray for Ousmane Sonko wishing him good. And this is interesting as I said, always think about that as if he's talking to someone else. We have no proof that there's no person behind the phone, but common sense will tell you that if there was a person on the other side of the line and not even alter a word to say yes sir or Tonyalem or Degala or whatever it is, it's not nothing, I would take it to be no. Jammeh just created this audience for the purpose that he doing it for. I'm not praying for him. As if that person, we have not had the person say, because if it was a two-way conversation, we would have had the person say, Sa nyanal correct, or just pray for him, this thing, or don't wish him bad. No. He brought this thing in to make, you see, to thinking that, believing that people are gullible, people to think that, oh, there's kind of a relationship between him and Ousmane. Because there's an intermediary between him and Ousmane. And he's talking to the intermediary because the intermediary might be saying, oh, pray for him or whatever it is. As he's having a conversation with someone, which we have no proof of, but analyzing this thing is as, no, he made this up. Jammeh talk about sharing wealth. Jammeh talk about sharing wealth. We all know he doesn't share wealth. He accumulated wealth for himself. Even in the process of accumulating that wealth, those other people that took part in helping him accumulate that wealth illegally or legally, he will end up seizing that wealth from them. Tell me any transaction Jammeh had with someone and that person end up getting scot-free, apart from Amadou Samba. Apart from Amadou Samba. He will end up jumping onto you. Any illicit or whatever kind of this thing. Even his own family members. He impounded properties from his own family members. Business partners. There's nothing like loyalty. It's a matter of time. And to that, when we come to the oil, we give you an example. Part of the license fees that was paid by Africa Petroleum, $500,000. That in the Jammeh Commission, that $500,000 end up at Sirawalinda's account, private account. Sirawalinda was the junior minister of petroleum. Jammeh was the minister of petroleum. We'll get to that. And Jammeh talk about Gambian hospitals. You see, and that's another thing. Just think about this. Talk about Gambian hospital. That's another thing that he planned to put out there. Now, this is a two-edged sword. Stop the Barrow government and stop Senegalese at the same time. Now, look at this. We know all as a fact. You see, if I talk about the PPP government, as a child, I was a critic of the PPP government. Because the environment I grew up with in Bakau, especially Bakau Sanchaba, the environment I grew up with the kind of brothers and kotos around, that was the thing. It's not even loaded. of even most facts. But as a child, we even took part in activities that are that are actually they related to Moja. I talked about this story where myself at my childhood friend Bob Now, who was an artist, who was gifted even as a child to write. Still, I cannot write properly, I can tell you. If you see my writing, you will not believe it. But this Bob Now was just gifted. And we just had idea time. In those days, the radio canker. It's not social media. Talking about Moja and all these things. And we have not even seen it. There's no social media. Or that there are some, paintings of Moja in Banjul. They wrote Moja G, Gambia. From there on, we just went. Bob now used to go to a studio and got some paint from the studio. And it was not even, to explain the time it was not even late. It was even daytime in those days in Gambia. If you go to where the CFRO is, Bakau, at that corner there, it's dead. No one around there. There's a time that some Koto will come and camp right there. At that point, Bob now went and put Moja G, Gambia. And later we were hearing some of the Kotos taking credit for it. This is where environment goes on. Always opposed to PPP, regardless of what. So at times, obviously, we don't even understand some of the things we opposed. But benefit of hindsight today, we still criticize them and everything, but give them credit. Because we remember, we have uncles coming from Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, especially operation of Hania. I remember Hania. And so other operations. And all these things, and Dr. Jones, and then there are many celebrated doctors that Gambia knows of. Peters, this thing, and local people will tell you this person is the best in this operation, that person is the best in that operation, that person is the best operation. This was the knowledge they have, their experience. People were coming from Senegal. Not talking about probably they live around the border. We have that experience. But I'm saying that people were traveling from the cities from Senegal, coming to Banjul to get treatment. We all share family members will tell you that experience and other places. That was a fact. But what happened? The first fall is Jammeh. You see, the infrastructure is very important, but most important is the human resource. You go to certain you go to certain field hospitals, and you see them operate, do things, and help people, revive them in field hospitals, where they have to adapt to many things in order to give that help. It's because of the credit toward the human beings behind the knowledge and expertise to render help. And this is the first thing Jammeh dismantled. Doctors, nurses, and I know of nurses that resign or left the public sector, they don't want to be humiliated, and put the healthcare system upside down. Gambia was good at preventative, the primary healthcare system. You never heard about that again. Many things we had, our records was excellent in immunization and many other exercises. That's credit to the staff, the people, and the government. Now, if you come as a government and been dysfunctional and went over and make the civil service and the medical practitioners completely the same, what do we have? And this is where it started. We'll blame Barrow for continuing it, but this is where it started. I remember in 2010, I was in Dakar. I went to visit a Gambian. Literally, that is a private clinic. About 12 people are from the Gambia. 2010, when he was talking about building all this. But he said this about the hospital, using it as political tool to start both ways, saying that if that wealth, why all the wealth he accumulated did not go to to capitalize and do other things. But he said here that treatment was, even Senegalese were charged less or as Gambians. That's not true. Those reforms came during the ERP program, that non-Gambians would start, Gambians even would start to pay for certain consultations and other stuff. Because we remember era that you won't have to pay anything. You just present yourself and you see the doctor and see other things. That's where the ARP program brought that up from the IMF recommendations. Then non-Gambians were paying a little bit more. And that's for non-Gambians. There's no difference if Senegalese or not. But again, he said that, and if you go to, even Gambians go to Senegal, they cannot afford it. As if Gambians are charged differently from Senegalese. Absolutely not. Technically, let's say most of Gambians that go to Senegal for medical treatment, they are going to the private sector. And the private sector don't make any difference between who the client is. And unfortunately, in fact, many Gambians are going to the private sector there, which is of no better value, in fact, for what I have left home. I can tell you this of experience. I can tell you this of experience, because Senegalese who can really afford it, there are few clinics they will attend. If those clinics cannot take care of those things, they will move to. They used to go to Tunisia, and now it's more of talking. 2010 around, it was Tunisia, because I know people who did that. And I know a friend who went through that, and after recommended many Gambians, in fact, to take that route rather than going to Senegal, to go to Tunisia straight away. But he's making it, as you see, and he's steering. He's doing that to steer political tensions with Senegal. Because why for so long he did not steer, I'll get to that. And again, he said loosely, but when I return to the Gambia, you see, again, that's calculated. Now he have driveled around, agitated and everything. Now he plays a loose statement, when I return to the Gambia. That statement is not for Ben. It's not for most of you on here. But it's for some of the people that he still have control over and believe that he's going to return. And I'll talk about this return. It's not that of lack of trying. No. It's not that of lack of trying. If I return to Gambia, he would say he would go to the courts to reclaim all this wealth they took from us. And I'll put it accountability and to recover everything. You see, that's, again, this is when I'll talk to, politicians need to be careful of this. Again, he's trying to throw red meat again out there for us. Then, this is normally what happens with if you understand Jammeh. Once he's wound up and heated, then some of his statements he normally just random. I'm telling you this from knowing him before he became a president. You sit down in the conversation kind of warm up a bit, he will start to make statements. But the unfortunate thing is this statement, again, was meant for the outside to hear, Gambians for that matter, but Senegalese as well. But this particular statement is a miscalculation, and he's going to pay for that. Wiping out Senegal. You see, wiping out Senegal. He said that loosely. And he went on to say that Senegalese troops are Boy Scouts, or even not better than Boy Scouts, and all that kind of things. That's why they want our soldiers in Casamance border, and all those nonsense. saying about Senegal stealing our weapons. Our weapons are so sophisticated, Senegal cannot operate it. And I mean, all these things are just lies. All these things are things that Jammeh would do. And in normal these things, it's him. That's him. It's after he will realize the consequences. I'll give you an example of why this is quite important. Because for Jammeh, saying this, he knows that's not a fact. He knows it's not a fact. I can tell you two incidents. One is an attack that the Senegalese soldiers did. Bailo have talked about that at Kanelai. Jammeh said himself. And this was not even like a coordinated attack to attack Kanelai. It was a hot pursuit of rebels. And Senegalese gunships, helicopter gunships, decided to attack Kanelai, whilst Jammeh was there. And I can tell you, if they really wanted to get him that day, they could have got him that day. It was not a coordinated attack. If what it was likely, it was how to call it, an aggressive reconnaissance patrol that came into contact, and they advanced, to pursue these rebels. After that day, Jammeh ran back to Banjul and what? And started to contact to take this team off. He did that. But there was a time, I can't remember the year exactly, off head, but I could walk out and tell you the year. I can reference it. This was a year before, and around a year before Jawara was pardoned to return to the Gambia with all settlements negotiations. Because what happened is, there was a Senegalese intelligence guy called Essa Diallo. He's related to a Gambian. And this Senegalese intelligence guy was a double agent. He was working for Senegal, but he was working for Jammeh as well. He was part of the double agents. And that was the saddest thing. Many people suspected another intelligence officer who was a Jola. And to be candid, it wasn't him. It's later, in fact, we find out. Through certain things prowling, I found out the identity itself. Even people who were involved, I was not involved in what was happening then, did not know the actual person who was the double agent. Because when I heard the story, they were saying, yeah, these Jolas, intelligence officers in Senegal, sold us out. That's not true. The guy was Essa Diallo. And I confronted a colleague and said, something happened actually. What happened was during the impasse, certain intelligence was coming to certain people in the Gambian struggle. And they started putting that out, which was not to our favor. I did a video. But I went to investigate where was this information coming from. And following the trail, it led me to, because that information was up to even the Senegalese intelligence were buying into that. Because when some of the incidents they said happened, when we did our due diligence on the ground, did not happen. In fact, we realized was someone was trying to play a game on Gambians to revolt. This was before Jammeh even rejected these things. We were monitoring. And when I spoke to this intelligence guy, he said something that my colleague is the one that gave it to me, because he gave me the intel for me to work on it and get it out. I said to him, by chance, is your colleague Essa? He said, yeah. Do you know him? Because he never said anything to me about the colleague. I said, is this Sonko Diallo? He said, yes. I told him he's a double agent. I said, right now he's working for Jammeh. You guys have to be careful. All these things is a lie. They are fabricating this and they want to destabilize us. Yeah, I want to stay. And the next day, it came out, when Yaya came out to say he's going to reject the results. Let me get back to why. Now, when some Gambians were working with the Senegalese intelligence, and Abdoulaye Wade personally was really on to take out Jammeh. To the last minute, this S.I. Diallo sent the message to Jammeh to say that if you're not careful, if you're not quick, you'll be out. And he gave names of Gambians. I was not part of it. I have nothing to do. I was not even in Senegal. Just because my networks, I found out about this. And these Gambians, I confronted some of them and they acknowledged. But again, they didn't even know how this thing came out. And when that happened, he said that, I mean, they are already here and Senegalese are working on covert operations to get you out and install this interim body. Jammeh ran to ECOWAS. If he wasn't, he ran to ECOWAS. By that time, General Obasanjo was just retired as president. Then General Obasanjo was sent to mediate between Jammeh and Wade to avoid this operation to happen. This is where General Obasanjo demanded that Jammeh have to give them something for them to mediate. And that something was the return of Sadauda and give him all his due. When Jammeh agreed, that's where Jammeh contracted Abdoulaye Kujabi, the then NIA Director General. Abdoulaye Kujabi went to testify and gave a different story as it was his initiative. It wasn't his initiative. It was Obasanjo that bargained that with Jammeh, and Jammeh said he was going to do that. Then it was General Obasanjo that put up a strategy to say Barrow that Jammeh that arrest all the opposition, but don't arrest the major opposition. All the small opposition, don't arrest the major opposition. If you arrest the major opposition, things can go out of hand. But in fact, if you arrest the minor opposition, it might bring a divisive decision because of the major opposition will believe that the minor opposition were onto something without them being involved. This is when Halifa Saleh, even Ahmad Ba and others were arrested. These two came to the TRRC, it wasn't clear. When they were arrested, it was just nothing. None of them was tortured. They were hold resisting. It is to give way for Obasanjo to walk in for negotiations. This is how the Obasanjo proposed the interparty mechanism. Jammeh was so scared. Jammeh attended and agreed on the interparty and anything Obasanjo put on it. Then Obasanjo traveled from, go read the timelines, Google it, traveled from the Gambia and went to Senegal. And this is where he negotiated with Wade, saying to Wade now the guy, because Senegal said all the reasons why they want to teach him a lesson, or do this or do that. Now this is where the negotiation came about. And then fix the relationship with Senegal, with Wade actually. But that's why I say we have to be careful. What the double stroke what Jammeh did, once he regained his posture, he dealt with Wade. This is where Jammeh understand the influence of the Muridiya movement. I think that time Sheikh Bara Mbake was the Khalifa. I think it was him who was into agriculture and all those kind of things. Then he penetrated through, again, networks. And unfortunately, the Senegalese at that time thought they overpowered Jammeh. And there's a network in, Jammeh got into the Muridia, this thing. And then the Senegalese used some of those people in Banjul that were linked to the Muridia movement to be a counterintelligence for them. Until one of those people, daughter, was working at the president's office. When I detected that, I detected that from Senegalese intelligence. We had a discussion, and they said something, and I said, it must be coming from that girl. How do you know? I said, I'm not stupid. That girl is an agent. That girl is your agent. Now, what Jammeh did was, he got on with the Murids to dismantle some of the, this thing. He was too generous and all those kind of things. Started to get contact with figures in Tuba, and actually other things we cannot even narrate. How he penetrated that place. Very, very, very dangerous. And in fact, started to put money in the opposition. And this Macky Sall, benefited from that. And again, if anyone want to see the evidence that to support this, a month or so before the elections in Senegal, Wada's last election, Wada traveled to the Gambia. Before Wada traveled to the Gambia, Wada sent a delegation. Samuel Sarr, Atape, the architect, Atape, what's his name again? Kujabi. They came and to talk to Jammeh, not to, hold his hands to stop the financial support going through intermediaries to Macky Sall. You know what Jammeh demanded? That Abdoulaye Wade himself will come. They go and look. It was out of port. That's why Abdoulaye Wade came. In 2 days, Abdoulaye Wade was at the State House. It was televised. And literally, if you listen to what Abdoulaye Wade was asking for, was, please, don't interfere. Literally, that's what he was asking for. But Jammeh knows that he got them where he wants them. He continued. And when Macky Sall won and said, I'm coming to the Gambia because of the relation, that was a lie. But later, they broke off due to the influence Jammeh thought he would have on Macky. Macky would not accept that. Then, when did that happen? That was when they went and captured. He got the rebels to capture some Senegalese soldiers and kept them within the Gambian borders to hold Macky to ransom. And he miscalculated again when he did that, until some international NGOs had to get involved to negotiate for the Senegalese soldiers to be released. And Macky Sall said, that's it now. We have to teach him a lesson. And that's where it started again. Macky started to get involved in other operations with other Gambians. That's for another day. Now, this is very relevant to what I'm coming to say. What this does is to explain what influence Jammeh used to have, because of the resources he have, because of the position he has. But he failed to realize that he doesn't have that influence anymore. Even if he have the resources, he doesn't have the influence anymore. And if you are in this game, stakes will be higher. You see, even mercenaries are calculating. Mercenaries are, because mercenaries don't want to die. They want to just get into something and get money and go. And if I say mercenaries, I'm not saying only armed mercenaries. These are people, doing things for money and all those things, selling services for money and something like that. But in order to get a political outcome or so on. And he did not understand this. This is where it comes. Now, let me just come back to why he's targeting Sonko. Okay. And there are many evidence that we are going around. We all know that Senegalese government have tried to throw everything on Sonko. This previous Senegalese government, Macky Sall. When Sonko miscalculated or whatever it is, he's got caught up in a solicious thing at the street party. The Senegalese government just shows you, they mishandled that. If they just had pursued the moral argument, political moral argument on what Sonko did there, Sonko is human, as we are all. And once you get attention, power, and everything, some of these things come to you. If they have pursued that, Sonko would have been finished. But the mistake they did is they interfere to take that to politicize it, to take that to want to make it criminal, thinking that it's a criminal, thinking that it's a criminal prosecution that would have broke Sonko. They did Sonko a favor. The minute they went to the criminal route, criminalize it, they did Sonko a favor. Now Sonko can explain it. Disregard my thing, but you can see now it's a plot. Everything's a plot. Yeah, latter part was a plot, but obviously nobody dragged him to take him there. That's all. All they have to prove that he went there. And that they could have done it in a way that he would deny it. That's what they say, contraction. To give the story contraction. Deny it to put him in a cul-de-sac that he cannot turn around and confront him with the evidence. It's here. This is it. Listen. We have seen you on the 6th, we have seen you on the 10th, we have seen you on the 12th, we have seen you, because he would have continued going there. You might not even need the girls. Or the girls would have been easily and credible. Because the girls would not lie about anything. They would just say the truth. Whether sexual or not, whatever they believe is the truth, just ask them to tell the truth. Then it would be easy for them to explain. If some people explain their experiences, it's easy for people to be convinced. But now, exaggerating guns and this, no. They tried everything. They tried to make him Salafi. It did not work. They tried to make him anti-Sufi. It did not work. They tried to make him a rebel. That was the ultimate one that if it had, if they could have any fishy evidence, it would have contraction. And Sonko would have been finished. Because he would be convicted for a long time under anti-terrorism laws. And I tell you, the support he have in Senegal would have evaporated. He would not have got here. Now, what happened is, in this midst, that's where I have mercenaries that sell information, generate information selling. Now, latter part, Yaya was desperate in exile. Yaya need money. Yaya have money. Yaya need contraction. Yaya needs something to hold on to Senegal. Now, he's obviously with Macky Sall and the relationship with Macky and Barrow and the advantage Macky was taking on the Gambians and everything else, Gambian resources, everything else, he have never advocated against that because he was working on something else. Now, you know, he got some of them used to be in Guinea-Conakry, some of these junglers in Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, Casamas. And remember, he got a guy called Baitullah, who he was communicating directly, sending him information to even insult or distort or whatever it is. But there are so many people, Senegalese, Gambians, who were traveling to and fro or communicating. He have a lot of links in the belief that he can support Sonko. And if Sonko succeeds, he believes that Sonko have tribal, nationalistic, whatever it is, or whatever they make him believe. And these people were running around. And always marabouts are totally giving him hope. But one thing I can tell you, none of those people running around have ever spoke to Sonko about Jammeh. I have my reasons to say this. None of them. But they were scamming Jammeh, making believe, and he was pumping money into these people. These people were going around associating the so-called journalists and all those kind of things. making Jammeh to believe that they are working with Pastef, they are going to do things are going to happen. That was a lie. And some of this information, if you had followed Baitullah, I know it's a very difficult thing to do because of the amount of insults that comes out. But luckily, I have people that were filtering this information. They see an audio, they think something important. They said, just be patient and listen to this. And when I listen to it, they don't know how much more I get from it. I know what I got from it. And this thing went on. On the side of Maki, they were running to Maki to make him believe that they got everything they needed. That intelligence, they thought the information they thought they had. Very luckily, I had the custody of it. I had the custody. I still have the custody of it. But that information was mainly fabricated, which Senegal would have detected, but that's not their interest. Senegal's intelligence, if you have looked at that intelligence properly, they will know it didn't add up, or it's not true. It's not true. I'm not going to talk about exactly because, still there's some vulnerability about that intelligence and people involved. But, because why I said you could be proven, I myself, when I got the intelligence, I proved it. That some of the things in there was lie. Hence, those things are lie, then the entirety would be a lie. Then the other entirety, I said, I reasoned out, logically said analyzed it and said that this is the reason now and they're going to sell it. And these things happened months before. I discouraged it, I hold it. Because the person that had it before believed in it. And I said, no, give it to me. Luckily, he gave it to me and he lost, that person lost his copy. Then, after a few months, the person came around looking for it. And I asked, who needs it? He's still adamant. No, he's normal. That this. Oh, this, they need it, they need it. And after him asking, I was monitoring and I hear some of this platform that these Macky Sall guys were using to tarnish Sonko. Francois Ellen Gay and all those nonsense, Tua Pom nonsense and all this. They came with this lie. They interviews. Yes, yeah, Sonko. That time, Sonko is in custody. Sonko is linked to Jammeh. You remember that? Sonko is linked to Jammeh. Sonko is linked to Casamas. Rebels. Because in anticipation, they had this information. And they anticipating that they're going to get the evidence because they were assured of the evidence because they know how much money they are going to put there to get that evidence, which is dodgy evidence. I came out. That was the reason I had an interview with Pap Alinya. Over the years, I know Pap Ali. We discussed many things with it, but I had to come out on Senegalese networks. I had that interview with Pap Alinya and dismantle everything. Dismantle everything. And they could not have, I said they will never have that evidence. That was when they went and arrested Baitullah. They arrested Baitullah. They wanted Baitullah to come as a witness. They tried everything. Credit to Baitullah. With all what he blew out there, when it comes to it, he refused. They tried everything. I'm not saying, I have no evidence that he was tortured, but I can tell you they offered everything. They tried everything. They tried everything. And if Baitullah have said yes, now they would have tried to use Baitullah, but still, without this evidence, it would still be shaky, but that would have been even enough. I can tell you that. And truly, Baitullah, most of it, he was talking as if he had direct contact with Sonko or people like Baitullah. They were all mercenaries, just selling crap to Jammeh to believe, and people around Jammeh. Now they abandon him. Now, when that happened, they tried to get this evidence, they could not. This is how Senegal, after, and I came out and rebutted, and they understand and know that they cannot get to this. That's why they left that charges. We all remember how they hyped that thing after they dropped that. They did not go for those charges. And obviously, things evolved to the extent of Maki have to leave. We have to, these are the things that happen. Now, if you listen to Jammeh, this is why he is really angry with Sonko. He thinks that Sonko have betrayed him, when Sonko have nothing to do with it. When Sonko government came, weeks after, Baitullah was arrested by Senegalese intelligence. This time, nothing to do with politics. This was the Senegalese genuinely arrested him based on information they have, and they're still doing their investigation. I don't know why it took long, whether it was credible or not. That is for them to decide. That tells you the difference. Why would they arrest Baitullah now? If Baitullah was connected to Sonko or so connected to Pastif. You see, now these are all things now for Jammeh. He's thinking that he was betrayed by Sonko, and no, Sonko have nothing to do with it. He fell for scammers because he was desperate. Because part of all this too, there are many instances, I can tell you, genuine, that certain threats. You know the ambush about those Senegalese soldiers. There's a lot in that. There's a lot in that. And that too was going to provide opportunity for them. You see, because of Macky Sall was using Gambia and the rebellion to explore the Gambia government and Barrow to believe the instability in Casamance. When that instability was created by criminals, drug dealers, timber smugglers, and the political interests of Macky Sall administration, not Senegal, to make us believe in security, to keep us where we are. That's why I am blaming Barrow. Because security sector reforms in the intelligence, security sector reforms in the armed forces, security sector reform in all these institutions would have nipped this off. And our special relationship with Senegal would have been right, and we would not have any security threats or any other threats. But he allowed Barman, which is very important in what we're going to talk about later. This is what we need to note there. Let's move to this oil thing. Let's move to this oil thing now. What Jammeh said, it's without good reason. I know many people are saying it's with good reason. We have to look at the background of this. Why I say it's without good reason, because Jammeh deliberately lied about concerns to say that it is our oil. Jammeh doesn't have that evidence. And no Gambian have that evidence. I don't think any Gambian will have that evidence. Even the worst of our technocrats, if they had that evidence, actually they wouldn't have sit down on it. I'll come to that. And I will say this. This is something some of us have said many, many years, many times repeatedly. This is something that politicians, especially credit to Dr. Lamin Mane of UDP, have made on Coffee Time, have made on different platforms. These are not exactly statement of Jammeh. No, I'm not saying, I'm talking about the debate about this oil. I call it a debate about this oil. We'll come to the facts. This is something as recent Larry Cisse had made many times. And as recent SFL have been agitated. That's so much they can do. Yes, no, they can do a little bit more, but they have done so much. If the Gambia government was responsible, we would have had the facts on the table. But if you have nothing to worry, you will not have hide any information. especially is important. Now, this information, now the politics of oil, Jammeh is using that as a leverage because of all leverages have gone. Now, what he thought about Senegalese new government would have advantaged him. All his political leverage in the non-alliance is going. He's in disarray. He's sacking people, and other people are fleeing. Now he have to reinvent something. This is why he brought the politics of oil. Politics of oil is dangerous. It takes countries at war. Politics of oil is very effective democratically if it's used effectively. And Senegal have done that. Passive have done that. And this is where our opposition should be looking at. I had a story some time ago that Ousman Sonko did. And Ousman Sonko did that statement to kind of point to why is it, he was talking to Pacific, why is it important to discuss policy and how these policies are important to bring about change. You know, he said they were traveling before they become popular, these popular men, traveling through the suburbs of Dakar. And children, waved at Sonko, and they stopped. And Sonko wanted to find out, like, where do you know me from? Hey, we saw you at the tele. You brought this. And if I remember, they said to him, you brought the oil to Senegal. Yeah, in the Dubai. And these are young people. Yeah, in the Dubai. Imagine the level of transparency. I'm not saying it's completely transparent. Oil politics is never totally transparent. This is a fact. There's a politics in it. It's money. Multinationals. It changed governments. It brings about war. That the transparency level, we have to think about that. And because of this children, this is what they remember of Sonko. Sonko knew that then is resonating to the public. And after you spoke to Senegalese, they will tell you, this is where these Gambian politicians are failing. Articulate it as much as possible. I know you haven't got some of the imperial evidence, but you can relate to expert evidences that are out there that would tell us there's this convincing circumstances that we should be very hopeful we have this oil. But tell us what you would do when you get hold of this oil. Or if you come to office, what you're going to do to get the bottom of it and make sure we explore this oil. And the resources of that oil, how you're going to use it. And explain the failure of this government as much as you know. You don't have to lie about anything. This is how we convince people to know that's it. This is the things that Pasteur did. They did not give out money. No, money was given to them because of people own up to their ideas, projects. Give them money so that they can have invested in them so that they can have the greater wealth to share. They tell them how they're going to do that greater wealth. And last week, Sonko have come out and say one of those things they have withdrawn. First, they have withdrawn the contract. Now, any crude oil lifted in Senegal, the share of Senegal is going to be refined in Senegal. Imagine the Macky Sall government allowed everything to be refined somewhere else when Senegal have got a refinery there. This is how much these so-called Democrats hate us. Corrupt officers. Now that thing is settled. Now he's talking about the gas. Priority will be given to supply the Senegalese energy network. Do we understand the importance of affordable energy in an economy to propel an economy? That's why people in haste thinking, no, they are not going to do a fanfare kind of projects. No. Elephant projects, no. Though if Senegal achieve that, it's in negotiations, this is the position of the government and it's likely to achieve. And they'll have enough gas to propel their power stations. And energy prices to dip down, is already dipping down to go down to certain levels. to advanced oil developing nations. I'm not talking about Nigeria and others who can even still, cover 40% of their needs with all the oil they have and gas. If they achieve that, that's where the economic boom will come in. And we have already seen him settling around the sub-region, trying to capture markets and do other things, to disrupt what the Moroccans are trying to do, to undermine the ports of Dakar. He's trying to re-establish, to ensure that that project from Morocco to Niger would not happen, because it's tainted with a lot of risk. It's easier to get them from Senegal to Niger, or Gambia to Niger. Hence, we are not doing it. Senegal is doing it. Now, the policy of oil, as I said, I came around it for the Gambia in 2016. Some people who followed me around that time will remember. And how? There's a gentleman, I call him Koto, Babukar Cham, he's in Seattle. I get to know I didn't know who he was, but later when we knew each other, then we know of our family connections. He used to participate behind the scenes on the Fatu Network programs. He is into finance, he's into brokery and other stuff. He's very connected. And we were dealing with certain issues and this thing popped up. And he said, you guys have to be looking at the prospects of oil in the Gambia. This was early 2016. He started to educate me. You see, this is what I'm saying, referencing, I'm not an expert, referencing an expert opinion. He's an expert due to his investment portfolio, involved in investment in these markets. But again, as God's have it, part of contract security I did in the United Kingdom here on intelligence. We work with a company called Saipem, ENI. It's an Italian engineering company that works in oil fields all over the world. And Saipem ENI, part of what we were working with them was their project called Project Dolphin. And this was offshore drilling and engineering works they were doing in Nigeria. Part of that, we work on intelligence, security, and all those kind of things, as doing assessments and strategizing for these things. I had a kind of a bit of scanty things because we were manning the communication centers. We are coming across, and we are interacting. The engineers briefing us. We debrief them. They went, and all these things we understand. But obviously, it doesn't make you to understand about drilling. Just some parts of the life and around it. Then when he engaged me, Koto Babukar Cham, about it too, listening, I started to learn more. Going back to see some of he gave me pointers. Actually, he explained to me how oil came about. Apart from saying Yala Defar. Scientifically, how it came about. As God's have it, he prompted me and sent me articles. I still got articles. Said that you have to. At that time, I was not advocating. I was just studying. He was pushing because I don't have knowledge in it. I was not advocating. To the point he said, explaining how oil came about. How oil came about. How does it come about in the ozones, offshores? How this billions of years, of these things process going on, and so on and so on. And not only that, he educated me about the contracts, how contracts are drawn in oil, about the templates, about 2 to 3 different templates. It's a standard. But which is very important, we come to, saying that, Dakanga Jai essence be guy, I'm 10%. That's an investment. Know all that. You cannot have anything different unless you put in the capital. It's capital intensive. The risk now is very reduced. Now, before you get to investing in technology so advanced, he educated me on all this. He said, what happened just like Saudi Arabia? Before Aramco, Saudi owning their wealth and able to do things on their own. Aramco, Saudi started with 5% and so. But what you do, you save your royalties, saved and create a sovereign wealth fund. But again, there are other taxes that you collect through the downstreams and other things. Then later, part of the contract you sign, you start to buy in. Then you can, from moving from 5, you can buy 15%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and buy out the contract. Or buy 10, 15, 40% and take part of that investment and even go and drill for yourself. Invest or drill for yourself on your other wells, and finally, that's how you come out to own. That's why Aramco, Saudi Aramco is how big it is. And recent developments, I followed a bit about even now the stakes they have, move on. This is how it happened. It explains to you the revolution in Libya, how Libya did theirs to own everything. The revolution in Iran, how Iran owned up their everything. These things, you can educate yourself by relying on, obviously, experts in this and researching yourself, and it goes on. This is part of the knowledge. But I remember as well, Radio Kankan, as I said, as a young person, very interested in the news, in the politics of it. But again, Gambia being small, events happen, you see it. And part of that research started looking at Gambia, even the history of oil exploration. Now you come to, different stories about, with Chevron, with other companies that came in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and so on and so forth. Even the latest ones, which I remembered as a young adult, was the Iran-Gambia exploration agreements. And people who can remember this, where Julbru is, where Carnifin South is, where the steam corner is, we have seen Iranian engineers, geologists and others came around there. They were putting the flag of Gambia and Iran. And this was the late 80s, early 90s. Until the early 90s, around 1992 or so, a delegation that Saudi Arabia took and went to Iran. And luckily in that delegation, as recent as a few years ago, I spoke to 2 people who were part of the delegation, and one of them was former Ambassador Salah, who in fact confirmed most of the rumors to be true, or even said more about it. About when Jawara was frustrated with all these Western companies. And again, politics of oil. And part of their decision with Iran was to have a refinery in the Gambia. And part of it too was to try to see how to do the exploration without cost to Gambia. This is the Iran decision. And obviously, down the line, Gambia have to back out because of the international pressure. Because of the international pressure. The rumors about, the Petroleum Commission in the PPP days and every other thing, it was there, but we didn't have most of the facts. But as I said, some of the facts I have was through, again, experts who were there. 2 people who were there. And part of that trip, Amadou Samba was a young solicitor at the AG Chambers. There by then, this trip, he was part of that trip, I remember. But this tells you there's so much information. We cannot just depend on what they are telling us. Let's move on. Then, with all this knowledge about, these are facts again, that knowledge we have. We come to something around November, just before the elections. I unless Facebook delete them, I made 2 different videos in the evening. And this is where, again, Ababakar Cham Koto Ababakar Cham. He's from Banjul. Dobson, they call him Babakar Cham Buyam, who taught me a lot. Said to me, read this, send an article, read this. You guys need to, that's the first time I came and advocate for oil. And my point was, this is a reason to change this government. If we don't change this government, we are going to lose everything. Thank you, Dr. Emal, yeah. We discussed this. Imagine that. Because what happened? This is when, from shareholders meeting of BP, British Petroleum, the meeting mentioned Gambia, that they are in negotiation with a company called Africa Petroleum. Who owns Africa Petroleum then? That mafia again. The name will come to me. The British Petroleum shareholders meeting. They briefed their shareholders. They are in advanced negotiations and they talked about the potential of A4, A5, if I can remember. Don't keep that on me. I didn't have the notes. And this A4, A5 are different from these Sangomar ones we're talking about, or the A1, A2 by the Sangomar. We'll come to that. The negotiations was, they said, depending that Africa Petroleum can renew their exploration license for further development. If that is the case, they're going to buy in. Buy in the terms in the oil was that they're going to have shares and take over some aspect of the operation, not entirety. But they look at the prospects and what they want to invest in. When that happened, I said, wow. Then, you know, that time everybody was doubting what I was saying, apart from whether this, I said, then there's a viability here. If BP is going to say this to their shareholders, this is something great. I came and started to discuss this. And the little knowledge I have about what all this, but my main point was that we need to take out Jammeh. I bring a government that will be transparent, that will do this, the oil well can do this, can do that. This is not new. 2016 November. And if you want to see the evidence again, as I say, we're going to talk about facts here. The Jammeh Commission reports the $500,000 to renew the license was paid by Frank Timis. Thank you very much, my chum. Frank Timis. Frank Timis. You know, the same Frank Timis was involved in Senegal with that scandal. The 500 things were paid. Again, that's evidence. Jammeh Commission uncovered. The junior minister was Sirawalindao of petroleum. And the money ended up in Sirawalindao private accounts. And Sirawalindao was reprimanded for that, but guess what? The Barrow took that sanction off. And Jammeh took that, obviously, for Sirawalindao because of whatever relationship they have, so that Jammeh can get hold of his money. Now imagine if Jammeh was even taking the fees. Imagine Jammeh, having control of the oil. Just imagine Jammeh having control of the oil. From the information of the viability of oil, started to take more interest. I can tell you, this is where I say again, the circumstance evidence. Because again, from the education I have from Mr. Chan, explaining why is it easier now to do drilling. She said, in those days, it was so, the cost that was involved in, because where they start from, she said now they start from satellite images. A plane can just go past the environment and map it out and start to show you certain things. Then you can go and do this, do that, do that. And it's easier. The risk is minimal. So many, if you go and look at it in records. Then I went to records to look at what Jammeh was doing since he declared this oil. You see, because of Jammeh is kind of this kind of person, which evidence in what he did, what we see with the Jammeh Commission's report. Or what's that? Jammeh, a company called Fossil Fuel, I think it started for Fossil Fuel. And other he broke the contract with Fossil Fuel. The minute those people developed certain evidence of it, he was quick. He started looking other ways, destructive, those people walk away. But in fact, if you remember, around that time, the former Canadian Prime Minister who retired came to the Gambia, flew into the Gambia as a private distinct. He came to the Gambia because of the lobby for a Canadian company. For a Canadian company to send a former Prime Minister who's a board member or advisory executive of the board to come to the Gambia to lobby, there must be substance. There must be substance. That's another indication. There was, the contract started to move from one to another, destructively. Cane energy, other this thing. And not only offshore, offshore as well. You know this border scam is with Senegal in the Casamance region. It's not about 1 kilometer of land. No. Even other minerals along the Casamance Gambia region, fault line. This border, this is very sensitive. That's why we need a proper government in place so that this thing can be dealt with. It can cause a conflict. It destabilizes nations. At times we say, even thank God we did not find any. For good reasons. Until we are capable of handling this. If not, it's going to be a cause like we see today in Nigeria. When look at all these contracts, Jammeh moving from one to another, but something substantial happened. You see the BP move with Africa Petroleum, Frank Timis. Jammeh finally hold on to that one. And that was so much of hope. And the evidence of that, when I did my investigations, I said, why then? Jammeh could not work with Fossil. Jammeh could not work with it. Some people came, Why is he advanced with Frank Timis? This is one thing Frank Timis was good at. Now, if you look at the parallels with Senegal, Frank Timis was the first person to cast out. Because Frank Timis and others are not oil explorers. They are venture capitalists. They are speculators. They know when to go to take a minimal risk. Not risk, doesn't matter. Look at some of the shares Frank Timis sold. Went to how many billion? 10 billion? You think Frank Timis put in 500 million? No. You think 50 million? No. Senegal could have handled some of those things if they choose to. We all had witnessed the explosive this thing. Something that Sonko have actually, that's again, when that documentary came out, I say that's why the opposition have been very proactive and just confirm what Sonko have been saying. And this again helped Sonko, to resonate to the people. Now, when that happened, when I looked at that, how Frank Timis managed to bring in Petrosen, not Petrosen, this Senegalese company, this thing with Aliou Sall, Macky Sall brother, and all that deal, then understand, okay, there must be something here with Timis and Jammeh. Then I have to find out what the deal is to convince Jammeh to be this thing. Jammeh lied. Still, it was at 10%. Or less than 10%. And he was saying that I hold on to it because I'm not going to give mine for 10%. You will have to drink it then. Because you have no means to bring it out. And there's no company that will give you more than that. This is the template internationally. This is what we need to understand. But what Jammeh had was a big deal. You see that land, the land that Jammeh went and fenced between, because I'll not say his land, between around Wadna Beach to GPMB, down the seafront. That land now, Ahmad Ba and Barrow are trying to give to hoteliers. They first tried to negotiate it with a Moroccan company, the same company that gave a property to Macky Sall for taking a prime property inside Dakar. Yes, Barrow tried that. We don't know now where that ends. But you see that location, Jammeh took it and used to visit there, and his farming there. It's nonsense. That was part of what Jammeh have arranged. For the operations, for the facilities, that's what the facility management would be, to operate the oil, for the companies of doing the oil wells. And Jammeh would have contracted a company or have a company he owns. He's not going to only own the land he's going to lease. The land he's going to lease, that's what he agreed with Frank Timis. Lease to the oil companies to use, but no, he's going to have an engineering company. And later we find one of those people he approached to build to have a private engineering company. That person refused to take part, a Gambian engineer. He wanted to have an engineering company, and that engineering company too will be taking the major contracts downstream. This is what he planned. Now the deal went on. But when he lost power, 2016, again Dakar. You see, when the impasse was happening in Dakar, Gambians were worried. Gambians were doing everything. I can tell you, sleepless night, doing everything. Look, someone can tell you what they have done, but nobody can take credit for what have happened. Entirety, no. We cannot. Look, the more you look into this, Gambian. You see, this is where Gambians are good at. Unfortunately, crisis, but not to manage not to get to crisis. When they get to crisis, they sprung from you meet Gambians places that you don't expect. You hear what Gambians will do, the intervention they will do, and so on. But that's the same time, the crooks, the corrupt Gambians are active with their mercenaries. Dakar, everything happened. Then Far Oil and others down the line who were already negotiating with Jammeh and others pop in. Remember, Far Oil was A1, A2. Far Oil is another Australian speculators, just like Frank Timis. And these are the things I said. Some of these things you can do yourself. When a company is mentioned, go online. Check that company out. Share price. When you look at the share price, it's nothing. Check their background. Check everything as nothing. But what they're good at Africa is they know how to buy our people. They're very cheap. A case in action in Nigeria recently, the Goodluck Jonathan government, some technocrats with some politicians, sold oil prospects rate at almost 6 billion or so. Do you know how much some of these technocrats had? School fees for their children in private schools. Others have their courts. When Buhari came, they had to stop this thing, and they fought it in the courts. Nigeria first lost the case in UK here. Because the people that bought that, they were not in oil, they were speculators. They lost the case. You know what saved Nigeria the appeal? They came across, because they contracted IT experts to go through the machines. They came across correspondence between the venture capitalists and the Nigerians entrusted to look after the interests of Nigeria, and saw the payments of bribes and so on like that. The UK courts don't play with that. That's evidence saved Nigeria billions. Billions. You can see far oil. When I look at far oil's share price and other things, when I say we, because I share, I contact experts or people that know better in finance and other things. We see far oil was nothing, but they are just like fun. They're good at what they do, right, and control our technocrats and politicians. At Dakar, let me just say this lightly. I think Sirif Tambed was in charge, lawyer for Africa Petroleum. I'm not saying anything negative, just referencing. I am not scared of taking to court. I'm just saying this. I don't want to be offensive to anyone. And the negotiation started there. And it continued. Then what we realized with Africa Petroleum, when things came to Barrow's government coming to power, you all remember Tony Blair flying into the Gambia. We did programs on this. That's why I don't know why people are fascinated what Jammeh said. Jammeh said it's dangerous. When Tony Blair flew into London, Gambia, we said we know what it's about. Because Tony Blair, his chief of staff is called Jonathan Powell. Jonathan Powell was his chief of staff. He was his communication director. No, the slimy guy, spin doctor, was the communication. Powell was the chief of staff. First time, in fact, because the British civil service don't do stuff like that. It was Tony Blair that introduced that. Jonathan Powell. Jonathan Powell wrote a book, The Machiavellian. He wrote a book, The Machiavellian. Very interesting thing. Jonathan Powell, when Tony Blair left government, he left with Jonathan Powell. They put this nonsense governance. And at that time, too, they were engaged in the tripartite negotiations in Israel and other things, nonsense. Now you don't hear that. But he used that as a consultant as well. He would pretext that he's coming for democracy, good governance line. Within, and again, we went and checked this out, Tony Blair took, before we make the statements. Tony Blair, within the records, check it, I forgot, the richest former prime ministers. You know, United Kingdom don't do America. You leave office politically, you go and find a cause. But from Tony Blair, they started to become one of the richest board members and this, that. John Major, I can tell you, it's just moderate, nothing extraordinary. Brown, Gordon Brown, in fact, not even very moderate. He spent his life in improving education, third world, and those courses and others and others. Yeah, Thatcher was, conservative, very corrupt. And the family made multi-billions. That's why his son ended up getting into trouble. But, Alastair Campbell, thank you, this slimy spin. Jonathan Powell, they formed this governance thing. Like a consulting tank. But when they do that with that, to access power and make deals. Because Tony Blair, I'm not sure for now, he was acting as a non-executive director or some board of advisory to BP, British Petroleum. Within a short period, he made millions of dollars. From where? Dictators. Azerbaijan and all these Eastern things, he was doing consulting for them and this thing. And apart from what he gets from that, he was making broken deals for BP Petroleum. You know Gaddafi. For Gaddafi to hand over negotiation nonsense else, who flew into Libya? Tony Blair. They had that meeting in the camp with what British Petroleum executive and that's how they got to do everything to get the oil in Libya. When we saw that, guys, I was saying so in a brief, but when we get to this, we cannot be brief. When we saw, these things and saw Blair in the Gambia, we said, no, there's something will be going on here. But at that time, again, the politics people are not listening or believing that or ban on others because they are not giving jobs, they are this poor because of they allied with this person, this. Divisive. Again, people were not listening. Tony Blair and got in there with his so-called consultants. He went for BP interests. To the extent of Tony Blair opening office at the president's office. Because Tony Blair is making millions in the crisis in DRC. Consultations with, doing consultancy for that dictator in Rwanda. People, Gambians, many people celebrate. He's making millions. They are stealing from the Rwandans, from the Congolese, causing wars and selling arms, doing everything, killing our people, taking the resources. Tony Blair is part of that. He works with Paul Kagame. And again, part of my contract, I've looked into that. I have a vast understanding what's happened there, I mean, in Congo. But Tony Blair used that, and in fact got some Rwandans, and even Edward Singate to work for his corporation. They went to Gambia and even have an office to advise Barrow. But the conflict of interest here, it was, and when this happened again, I warned. When I heard Gambia government have impounded or took over, reclined the license of Africa Petroleum, they took it. And I said, we have to be careful. That's why I remember Sirif Tambir. I said, the justice minister is Sirif Tambir's brother. And they took this, and they should be careful. I'm not saying that the brothers did anything wrong. But because they took the advice of Tony Blair to take the license from Africa Petroleum. I don't like Frank Timis. I don't like Africa Petroleum. But if you are dealing with issues, you have to be factual. Because again, my education in underwriting contracts, especially Frank Timis and others, when they underwrite contracts, they do it way and manner. You can't just come and take it off them. You have to be prepared to know how to take it off them. Tony Blair advised this. Guess what? Who was Gambian's lawyer? Metrics, this thing is Tony Blair's wife, the company. They are human rights. They used to be a human rights this thing, law firm. Metrics. Guess what? They gave them the contract. Is that not conflict of interest? I advise you to break a contract based on my wife's advice that you are going to pay millions to defend. Millions to defend. You see, that's why the Gambia government will never come transparent. That's why we need a new government to get into all this. If we get to this oil scandal, it's bigger than the Jammeh Commission. Barrow will go. Any day our politician able to agitate this, Barrow will go before elections. Now, what happened there was, in fact, when Mamboure Njie was the finance minister. No, Astafla. Mamboure was not. Mamboure was, there's a reason I'm calling Mamboure here is, either Mamboure was a GNPC award, but the reason is Mamboure was part of the delegation that came to United Kingdom to try to, they said to sell the license. I contacted a friend of mine who's a wealth manager who's have experience in investing, because he invests for Arabs and other people. I contacted him and contacted Mamboure that this guy would have interest because he had interest before in investing in Gambia, stuff like that. And in that trip, Ami Bensouda was part of that trip to the United Kingdom. But that was a formality. Because the license ended up with who? BP Petroleum. You see what's happened there? Tony Blair, BP Petroleum. obviously, my contact with Mambure and everything else, I mean, in fact, what he said to me, oh, it was too late to get entry or whatever it is, but let me contact him, this thing and that. And the guy said, okay, wait. This guy went and did a due diligence in what was happening and said, don't bother. This is already sold. He said to me, the license I've already got. This is a formality. And it was. When British Petroleum come out, I said, it's right. Then this is what they arrange. They give it to British Petroleum. Guess what? Africa Petroleum won the case. Gambia would have to renegotiate. Now, why is that issue interesting? As adjacent, at the other side of the border, Senegalese border, this is not we are not talking about the one Jammeh is pointing out. Because Jammeh is not talking about that one because he knows what they played there. That would have matured. That one would have matured before the A2, A1 that Far Oil took over. This is why BP, 2016, they already have interest there. But because they could not get it when Jammeh was deposed, they got it when Barrow came through Tony Blair. And we know how it cost us. Oil exploration is an expensive investment. Now, mysteriously, BP hold onto the license till about 1 year or so. They return our license, saying that because of they are interested in diversifying. It's a lie. To renewable energy and all those kind of things. Those excuses, it's a lie. I don't know the facts here, again, but circumstances are that. And we will see this coronation of what happened with Sangamar, the other side. Now, the point here is BP likely have another investment in the Senegalese waters, in the other side. Because again, politics of oil, investments. Now, if BP realize that this is speculating here, critical thing, to see why would BP return a license that BP would take would have been really, potential would have been high. Now, the license, if other side of the water, they have already advanced. Because that case through, after there was a controversy, Senegal repossessed the license and give it to EU companies. They took it from Frank Timis and Frank Timis was on both sides. And they give it to either Total, French or this, but I'm not sure even BP have shares there. I'll have a look at that again. Now, if BP realize that it's on advance and likely to start before they invest, and understanding the geological facts of oil, why would they want to invest in the Gambia? Why would they want to invest in the Gambia? Because if they already can, when they do that, again, that's not where they say stealing. It's not stealing the oil, but it's where the oil would go on the other side would be benefited. Because the wells might be down this, but it's a stream. It's a stream that runs. The rocks that compounds the gas and everything might be a diameter that include Gambian soil. And if you start putting pressure, they put pressure on other things. I can't remember, I was taught about the engineering of it. They put this, they pump it out, that's what extract the gas. Obviously, if they continue extracting the gas, and the other side is not extracting, what happened? They will end up taking what's on the other side. Experts can explain this better. Is it the fact that then BP have realized that they come in an investment here or there, whatever it is, their politics of oil, now they are going to do this from there. Why would we bother from this end? Because of our technocrats, our politicians have sold out. I don't know how. Whether they've been, I don't know how. You know, at times, these people can be deceived because giving them bribes, they don't know the consequences of what they're doing. All they see is the bribe. $1 million, this thing, they don't see just as the Nigerians did. Now, this is very interesting. Now, before we come to the Sangamar, where Yaya have pointed, I will have to give this layout. Part of the education, as I said, when I look at the history of oil exploration, if you do that, you see, it is as the entire South Atlantic that continue to Equatorial Guinea, continue to all those islands around the way, continue to even to South America, have potential of oil. I have seen the geological surveys and stuff like that, which are accessible. Others, you have to pay money. I didn't have the interest that much in those days to pay money, or if I have gone into that, I might not even have a clue of what was being done. But the layperson part that you can access, it was a fact. This is where it says Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, and I said before, this is colonial days, it says Casamas, then down the line. I forgot the name, that was a name they given to it. Now, if you look at the, what do we call the Salum Delta? Salum Delta is where the Gambia River and Senegalese River met with the Atlantic Ocean and stuff like the Salum Delta. And if you understand where the flow, water flow, debris and all those kind of fossils and all the things that happens to create oil, that's why many places you go, there's a delta for oil to be found. Wherever mostly there's delta, there are possibilities of oil, potential of oil. That's why you have the Niger Delta. You go to Cameroon or Gabon and other places, this is what you have. Or you have this thick, ancient, densely forest and billions of years, the dead, fossils, the fossils and trees and, organic and all those kind of things compact and go down and sip out to be oil. Now, when we look at that, now the recent politics, we looked at Senegal. Interesting. Senegal and Mauritania. Again, this thing came out. I don't want to deviate, but I just to point so people to understand how this information do come up at times. During the impasse, Mauritania was running a covert operation with Jammeh. And there was a ship that came from Mauritania, or through Mauritania. Mauritania was the last port of call to the Gambia. And what was in that ship was new AK-47s and some weapons and stuff like that. And it headed to the Gambia port, and containers were taken to the State House and offloaded. And when they were offloaded, some of these things were distributed during the impasse to Bakau and Yundum and other installations. How do we know this? We had intelligence then that containers were at the State House being offloaded weapons. We did not know where the containers come from. We thought there are containers kept somewhere, and now Jammeh needs it, brought it out. One day, I got a call from an operator, and that operator asked me, identify me and who I was. I think it was a Thursday night, evening. And once I identified, he said, hold the line. Someone wants to speak to you. That person spoke to me and said, look, we know that you guys are advocating this and following this kind of things, but we want to find out certain information that you might be able to help. What was the information? They gave the name of the ship. They said there's a ship that came from Mauritania to Gambia and had containers. We want to know where the containers went and what's in the container. I said to the guy, okay. He identified himself and everything, what they were doing. We know they were trying to, this was, let me just say, it was from the part of the State Department. I said, I'll get back to you. I had a contact to get back to them. When I checked my contacts, we could not ascertain these things. And my mind went to the intelligence we had about containers at the State House. I got back to him. I said to him, there's containers at the State House. And this is what's in there. And the guy said, that's right. We saw the images, but we were not certain. And this is that. And I engaged that person. I said, that's a disappointment. And she said, why? I said, we were assured by Senegal intelligence that Mauritania would not entertain. And she said, yeah, that's what politics is. And we exchanged, and he gave me the reasons why Mauritania was doing that, trying to support Jammeh. You see, that's why Jammeh was really relying on the Mauritanian president, who is now in prison, a criminal like him. That's this about oil. We talk about the oil. We talk about the theory of population replacement. You know, we're talking about it in America, and they are talking about it here. Population replacement, you know, the Senegalese population in you know, the Mauritania, the low birth rate of Mauritanian, I mean the light-colored Mauritanians, you know, and all those kind of theories and so on, you know, national security and others. Now, why this is important, the oil exploration. And when we look at it, as history has it, the Iran quit. It was about boundary. What boundary? Not land boundary, but oil fields. This is what Saddam accused Kuwait of, stealing oil. The same thing, Nigeria is in confrontation with Equatorial Guinea because oil fields. Nigeria in confrontation with Cameroon because of oil fields. UK and Norway. You see how the Norways, they have a joint, not these things. They had a joint venture because where the fields are located. They share it with UK. And many countries do that because of where it's located. Very interesting now. Mauritania, in fact, the platform, it's not the gas platform for Mauritania, Senegal. It's actually in Saint Louis. I've traveled there, at a distance looking at it. If I was a strong swimmer, I can swim to the platform. But obviously, it's an exclusion zone. But to tell you how, I mean, the platform is within Senegal. But it's a joint venture. Because of when they explore, it's going bound to affect the resources in Mauritania. They came to agreement, and West Coast is a drill kind of this thing, and you know, all these farms, when they see the potential, they know the potential of conflict. They had to sit with these two governments and said to them, look, we are ready to invest in this, but we cannot invest in one, not the other. You see, when venture capitalists, multinationals, when they put in their money, they know where to put their money. They know that they cannot control the Mauritanians. They know that they cannot control the Senegalese. Because either you like them or not, there's level of patriotism in them, they will not allow it. Now, what they have to do in order to benefit is to sit them down and negotiate. And this negotiation was done, and look at the facts, the geology, the data, and everything else. They have an agreement, and that was ratified in parliaments, and the agreement become binding. Now, that's what they're exploring. 1. 2, Guinea-Bissau, which is very interesting to know. Guinea-Bissau before Mbalo Sissoko. Mbalo Sissoko was actually installed by Senegalese intelligence by Macky Sall. Mbalo Sissoko. He was an intelligence operative who studied in Senegal, who spent a lot of his life in Senegal. And when Senegal saw, Macky Sall saw an opportunity, and I can tell you, what's his name? Sierra Leone, Madabio. Madabio to win the elections, Senegal played a role. John Weir winning elections, Senegal played a role. And even we have to give credit to Weir. Why do you think both of them, the minute they won their elections, they came to Senegal? Remember that. We know how these people operate. But that's what governments do. You don't expect any government to look after your interests. You look after your interests. That's why Gambians have to look after their interests. But not what Jammeh is trying to do. Jammeh want to create chaos. Us Gambians, we can think, we can organize ourselves, we can bring about change, and we can make sure they respect us, not because of our size of our army or anything, no, international law and all the things we have in common are not, but to make sure the leadership is respected, they respect themselves, and the people respect themselves and respect their leader. You know, last election, I'll come back to this, Guinea-Bissau, just to give you the context. Last, the re-election of George Weah, the Senegalese operatives, and if I say operative, they are not only national security operative, like, no, they are mixed businessmen and others. They call it an intelligentsia. During the elections, they advised Weah that would make Weah to win. Because Weah first round, corruption engulfed, development not really, 5 years. He didn't do better. And now the politics of it to win, it was all based on strategy, alliances, and communication, divisiveness, and others. We are resisted to say that I'm not going to send my country back to war. I don't swear, but my heart was just going to swear. Senegalese operative we spoke to told us that Weah was going to lose, and this is why Weah was going to lose. He refused. But he respected Weah. For the foresight, Weah have said, I'm not going to send my country back to war. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. I'm going to campaign. What was it? Because the wife of Charles Taylor, that Weah, this was again a strategy devised by this intelligentsia to partner with Weah to win elections. You know, and part of all these strategies, again, was to use the northern part, Lofa County and other Muslim majority areas. You know, they play kind of distinct ethnic, religious. That's nasty. But again, personality of politics, they brought Charles Taylor's wife as to co-running mate. This time around, what they wanted, because the influence in Nimba, the opposition then have control over the votes in Nimba and the environment and other counties around. And who had leverage on that was Prince Johnson, Senator Prince Johnson. They wanted Weah to broke a deal and give Prince Johnson what he asked for. There were areas, land, and all these kind of things, and he knows that if he does that, the communities will end up going to war. He refused. He refused. Now, coming back to Bissau, this is important. We're coming back to Bissau. When Senegal saw the opportunity, seeing how bad the Bissau government was performing, popularity and stuff like that, they infected, how to call it? They used the leverage this guy have. Mbalo Sissoko, his background and his connections, because he played a political role in many of time of the government and so on. But the rest, it was a political hack of election fraud. One of the biggest, just as they did in Gambia. For what? Why do you think they do that? Politics of oil. And secondly, the drug cartel. The drug cartel. Drug cartel and oil. But let's concentrate on the oil. The previous government before Mbalo have negotiated and had a parliamentary committee to negotiate percentage with Senegal. Again, as I said, the waters adjacent. To a point of coming to agreement, I think more or less split in the middle, or very close to splitting in the middle. This was the position. And then Senegal had to intervene to make sure Mbalo win the elections. When Mbalo won the elections, Mbalo went and handed over, which is very dangerous, without parliamentary approval. As I said, in Mauritania, they had to ratify it. Parliament had to ratify that and hand over a greater share to Senegal, to Macky Sall. Guess what happened? When the parliament learned about this, because the control, he didn't have absolute control, the House raised this question. And Mbalo lied to say that it didn't happen until they leaked the documents to come out. When this tension rose in parliament about the deal Macky Sall did with Mbalo Sissoko, at the same time, there was a big drug cartel pull and push that Mbalo was involved in. Remember that plane that left the night from Gambia and went to Bissau, that plane, the Qatari plane. I mean, let's just say it happened. When this happened and tension rose, that was when they did the so-called coup d'etat. It never happened. To the extent, just to silence parliament, to disband parliament, and have control over Bissau. What happened? Why did I say fake coup? At that day, Senegalese commandos went and reinforced the State House. People that know Bissau will tell you how the State House is located. And reinforced the State House and called for a meeting. The entire government, cabinet and so on in the meeting. They laid an ambush. You know, just like Gambia, when you say here the Bissau Navy, Bissau don't have a navy. It's a marine unit, a small unit. Their boats are not even functional properly. They sent a communique and asked for the marine unit, Bissau marine unit, to send a reinforcement because of they are anticipating an attack. That unit is not armed as the State House, and especially after the State House reinforces. And if you understand defense posture, and understand people coming to reinforce, not coming to attack, you see the disadvantage. Some of those people, actually, I think it was two vans. Two vans. I'll tell you the power of communication. The minute they approach the State House, the barrage of weapons, explosive, pam 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 pam, pam 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 pam. It went on. They stayed 2 or 3 hours. It stopped and they'll go on again. And they went with their silence to give it credibility. And later they emerge. Mbalo emerged with his team and everything with 12th attack. When people started to go and look, the buildings, the State House was intact. Even the State House fence was intact, literally nothing. These people didn't have time even to return fire. I'm not going to name the journalist. A Gambian journalist. When I did a program, the person called me and said to me, Ben, my brother was part of that van. You said the family member, Gambian family member, shared a text to say that the person texted me to say exactly what he said. They are called to reinforce the State House. There's going to be an attack. They never went there to attack. Again, I have the feeling of strength. That journalist is alive. Gambian. They said that the journalist said that the brother sent a message that they are called, when operations happen nowadays. Send a message, oh, we are going here, thinking that something might happen. They ambushed. Another contact I know said to me, Ben, you are right, that this mate have worked with this family for almost 2 decades. Very smart, eloquent mate. When the attack happened, the maid said to the landlady, my brother sent me a text to say that the state house is going to be attacked. Are they going to help the state house? Now, how did it turn out? This was correspondent. What happened after that? Parliament got dissolved. Elections got postponed. Up to now, no elections. Now, Mbalo is trying to stay in power because he knew. Because when they stole the presidential election, the parliamentary election came, they completely lost the parliamentary election. Completely swiped out. The opposition took over the parliament. Now, we have to understand these facts about politics of oil. But that does not mean that we have to jump on Yahya Jammeh's campaign. This is for us Gambians to take it seriously and demand the transparency and accountability. And I can tell you the Barrow government will not do that because they will be held culpable. Then it's for us now to put our differences aside, not to fall for these tribal games. I can tell you it's a strategy developed mostly by intelligence operatives. We know what happened in Congo. I can tell you. First-hand experience. Not that I traveled there. I work with people that work and develop these dangerous strategies. In Angola, in other places, in Niger Delta, even in the northern part of this Boko Haram thing. The oil money is dangerous. We can bring about change. Now, if Guinea-Bissau, as I explained, this is how it transpired. These are facts. It can't go challenge. Go and challenge it. If Mauritania negotiated and had this deal, and we see it happen in England, and England with Norway, we see it in other countries. We have seen where crises have happened in Iraq and Kuwait. We have seen the tension between Niger, Cameroon, Niger, Equatorial Guinea. We have to understand this is the reality. These are the facts about oil exploration. But the Jammeh to say that the entire oil going to Senegal is ours, that's a lie. But, as I said, with circumstance evidence and pointing to, in fact, expert, there is high potential that we have oil. And if we have oil on one side and Senegal have on the other side, if Senegals are exploring, we are not, we are bound to lose our oil. Now, let's come to that. The Sangomar. To explain to people where Sangomar is. I remember in Bakau, I don't know how, when we say Oimam, I don't know how to say it for Mandinkas. I think it's a wall of tradition. You know, when the last night of staying in the house of young men after circumcision, before they open up, before the grand celebration called Samba Soho, you go and do what we call Oimam. They take you to a dark place, you know, and kind of make this thing theater of we are going to, and people who used to believe that, the devil or whatever it is, I don't know what the mom was, and then, you know, do these things, they scare you to death. Someone would be, blowing fire out from the petrol from their mouth and all those kind of things, and the selbes, that's the saprons, would be making chaos, making scare. We used to do at Bakau Beach, some people used to do it at Kachikali and remote areas to say, now you've gone through this, you become a man, and all kind of things. I don't know. We used to say there was somewhere called Mami Kankujeri, and so on and so on. But again, Sangamar too, we used to defend somewhere about this thing. But Sangamar is above the Salum Delta. The Salum Delta is, again, where, again, as you look at geological terms, the Delta, just as the Niger Delta prospects. At the Salum Delta, at the Sangamar, if you look at the map, you see Riffisk. You know, most people believe Riffisk is not Dakar. Riffisk used to be a commune of its own. Dakar, Riffisk, and Saint Louis used to be three different communes, what we know as the colonies. Of Riffisk, some hundred of nautical miles or something like that, that's where Sangamar is. It's very close. In fact, if you look at the map, the line, this thing's demarcation is gone through. And the other side of that line is the Gambia. The other side is Sangamar, where the exploration is happening now. The other side, which is Gambia, we have, I think, Block A or 1. We have about 4 blocks. 4 blocks. Now, Far Oil. Far Oil was already involved in Senegal through this venture, speculating. They had license. They had to operate on that side. And when they have license and, you know, develop the data and everything, they start to sell the data, the shares. And they sold shares to companies that have the power to drill. And I think it's Woodside Energy and others. And when they say sold shares, they hold onto shares. They sell shares to give right, buy-in, farm-in, to farm into bigger companies to come in and do the bigger investments and so on. Then their shares will go up when oil potentially started to flow. You see, speculators. Now, the same FAR came to the Gambia. Remember what I said about British Petroleum when they were in the other side. FAR, when they come to the Gambia, corrupt. Because there was RN Energy. I think it's RN Energy. There's another company saying they pushed that one. Though they too, they were just speculators. And Barrow gave them this contract. They tried with Jammeh at the time. It was going to, then Barrow gave them this. When Barrow gave them this, it was based on bribery. And again, our technocrats fail us. Because some of these things is intelligence. If you understand drilling and everything works, why would I give a company that have conflicted interests? You have interest on one side of the one side of the border in Senegal, and you have one here, and these two kind of might have something to work with. Why did the Gambia not study it and think of, okay, this is the data, let's go and sit with Senegal. Just as Mauritania did. The example I'm using is Mauritania. Just as what Bissau did, but we know what ended up with Bissau. Dysfunctional government, they destabilized the government, and this is what happened. Now you see the coordination between governance and Gambia and Bissau. Now, when they give it to FAR, why did they not think of this? That let's sit down with Senegal and we do a joint venture. Then we negotiate based on the facts on the ground, and exploration will happen on this, and both of countries can defend. And this would avoid any kind of conflict. And it will be so transparent and goes on and go on. But guess what? Because they want to corner the market. This is why I'm thinking. That's why I said not only they bribe Barrow, but Barrow is thinking that FAR, because of the way FAR is dealing down the line, they will get more from FAR to go to themselves. Just as what Jammeh was dealing with Africa Petroleum. This is my thinking. And later part, we'll see why I was thinking that. This was my even thinking before something happened. Now, it became very clear that FAR did not get what it takes. They sold some off. You see, speculators, they hedge, bet hedging. They hedge their bets, put eggs in different baskets. But obviously, they know the one they will back to come out. It's like gambling. They did sold some this thing to Petronas and other petroleum company and here and there, you know. And do you know what happened with PAR? You know, when they said they were testing that drill, this thing, they did not go absolutely out. It happens that that vessel was around the waters of Senegal. They took just that. They went on to have it cheaper. They did not go to sign a contract to no, that vessel was already doing something around Senegal. They brought that vessel. Now, what to say that every data that FAR was giving us was fake? Manipulating the data in order to impress us and impress some investors just to maintain their books. But their main interest would have been their investment in Senegal because that was advanced. At an advanced level. If Gambia would go take 4 years, probably Senegal was only going to take 2 years. Now they bet when they hedge it, they're going to hedge it to come out from Senegal. Now what they're going to do with the Gambia is keep us waiting. Because what it takes to invest in petroleum, they don't have it. But for them, where their profit is, they are out there for profit, is in fact, let's deal with what is happening in the Gambia. Let's fool them because of their, I'm not saying us, we are fools. Our politicians, our technocrats are greedy and they are easily corruptible. Let's give them chicken change. And we keep on giving statements out. You just go and listen to the statements that FAR will say, oh, we have great potential here. You know, you think it's an AI generated. These Australians coming, we have this. But when Gambians even look at the FAR, they cannot say it. Down the line, what happened? The minute the Senegal started to almost pump out, the share prices went up. Oh! Now, what happened? FAR abandoned the Gambia project, sold their shares in Senegal and left. Just left. Gambia government did not tell us the reason. But again, you see the similarity here. How to call it? Petroleum. British Petroleum. After 1 year and holding on the license, they left. It is not, I believe. Again, I answer, I believe. And common sense and point to it's not that we don't have anything. I cannot tell you how much we have, but I think we have value for, in fact, to have joint venture in what we have in Senegal. What Senegal is drilling. But to say that everything they stole us, that's a lie. Jammeh is lying. Now, if many Gambians now are interested in this discussion because Jammeh said something, that says a lot about us. As I said, I'm not saying for me. I started this 2016 when Jammeh was in power. But for latter part, even politicians have been saying this on Twitter time and everywhere. But hence we were not interested. But Jammeh have to come in for us to be interested. That tells a lot about us. The facts are there to be seen. But the absolute imperial fact, we are not experts. We are not in control. What we are in control of to hold the government accountable. That's control we have. But this government is absolutely complicit in any wrongdoing, either incompetency or corruption, to the extent they will never hold themselves accountable. The only way we can hold them accountable, we can do everything, but it will have to change them completely out. Completely out. I am not saying this maneuver bring about another head of state. The cartel is powerful. They will just continue. The clean we see in Senegal, that's what we aspire for. And that's what will bring the change. And again, credit to the new government of Senegal. I don't know whether Gambians have listened to this. I have, and I share this, and many Gambians have listened to this. I have shared it with Alhaji Salou on an interview, and he had listened to this. Ousman Sonko had said something very insightful. When he talked about the things we need to negotiate with Gambia and everything, Ousman Sonko there talked about the oil. Our vice president did not say anything about oil exploration. Ousman Sonko said that these resources, they don't stay at one place. Something of that sort. That was enough to tell you if we approach this. But look, let's respect the Senegalese. They are not fools. Ousman Sonko might be popular, might everything. They respect him. But Ousman Sonko would be working for Senegalese interests. But we have this belief that Ousman Sonko will be fair. And he's sensible, he's intelligent to know that these things would need to be resolved. But Ousman Sonko cannot go out of his way to do what Gambia government should do. Why can't we hold ourselves accountable? Our governments accountable. Ousman Sonko will not come to tell us how we do things. That's for us to do. If this government cannot do it, why can't we put another government to do that? But to blame Senegal for this, no. Even to blame Macky Sall for this, no. This is the oil this thing. You see, that's why the other day I was saying this. The reforms we call for, people don't understand why it's important. Anything you touch in that country without knowing how to deal with our external partners, we fail. Even the World Bank, IMF, and all this nonsense giving you, I'm giving you another how many 50 million to build roads. Nonsense. Nonsense. The External Affairs Ministry is nothing. And intelligence is part of external affairs. You think the foreign embassies are diplomatic missions? That's 10% of their job. The other percentage is to gather information, intelligence. The other part is to, in fact, implement policies or implement strategies that would change, support their policy. Be economy, be the national security and others. Do we think about that when we think about our external affairs? That's why we said, when we said security sector reforms, people came and attacked us. We wanted jobs. I won't lie to you. I won't lie to you. I don't want a job because of I'm going to earn money in the Gambia. No. I want a job to impact so that when I lie down, I will sleep. From our experience, our background today, we have colleagues all the time contacting us to work with them in issues our integrity would not let us. Today we could have contracts and work in the chaos in Congo. Yes, and make money, big money. But that's something we don't do. At the time we dedicate to gather, do this, I don't advocate because I'm a journalist. I don't advocate for other things. I advocate because of my background. But just to close it down here, Jammeh is in the past that we need to deal with, hold him accountable. I'm looking up. And let me say this. The thing that really, really energized us 2016. Again, I will reference Koto Babukar Cham of Seattle. It's Modulamin Kanaji's uncle. I'll tell you, if 2016, if Jammeh have won that elections, what would have happened? Gambia would have been ruled by Jammeh. You know when Jammeh said billion years? Jammeh was not saying that he was going to rule, but his, this social engineering and everything he does, it was going to stay. Jammeh does not believe in an Islamic state. No. Jammeh knows that if he lives in an Islamic state, truly, if he was truly in belief of this guy was rearing pigs to make money out of pigs for a Muslim. But we all know other things he does as a Muslim. Then we know he doesn't believe that. We know the rituals he does are anti-Muslim, are shirk, and also other people will have even audacity to call him non-Muslim. I will not do that. I don't take that privilege. I don't own that privilege. But other people feel they are entitled to that. Do you know what's involved in this Islamic State? Tell you the strategy Jammeh had in place, which we decoded. You see, always for intelligence to work, you have to know what is happening. And if I reference this, many Gambians who say it, Jammeh was doing many things at the same time at the latter part. Jammeh realized that things have changed in many ways. And what was that change? Social media, the youth population. And the control of youth population was becoming challenging. With social media, it's becoming challenging. And I can tell you, Jammeh, in fact, facilitated a lot of back way to go. And resisting, when Jammeh was resisting to take people back from the back way, not that because of nothing. No, he knows the tension it's going to create for him. You see, Jammeh was thinking ahead. You will not like him after he was thinking ahead. People who know will tell you. It was opened it up. Even Bakau, behind the Bakau school, there were green vans by the depot, behind the depot. Green vans parked there in the night. And they used to transport people. You can hop into a van and move. There's nothing to stop. He knows what he's doing. But Jammeh too looked at the Arab Spring and understand what energized the Arab Spring. And he knows it's bound to come to Gambia. And he did one, and he looked at the politics, he did the politics one way. I'll explain that another time. Because once I start that, I'll have to go through there. I just want to point to things. Then Jammeh knows that then what I have to do here. The oil. Very important. Jammeh decided now he needs to look after his security. Security in the sense that down the line, he will have to deal with a lot of stuff. The international pressure and others. He cannot continue the way he is. What did Jammeh did? You see, Jammeh saw the Cold War coming back before many Gambians did. If you check from 2014, I cannot pronounce this name, this foreign affairs minister, the most experienced foreign affairs minister in the globe today, the Russian Sonko, whatever it is. Go and check. Even that Sabali, that buffoon, you saw him with him and others. Jammeh already, by 2014, he started working on that, getting the Russians on side. For two reasons. For his security. Just as today you saw the Russians. Jammeh have seen that before. You see, don't dislike the person and not give him the credit of who is. This is one thing Gambians used to fail. I remember I used to have discussion analyzing Jammeh. And people would say things that I was empathetic to Jammeh. I said, that's where you fail. You have to insulate your biases. In order you will not get this person. Jammeh seen that. 2014, I referenced one. You saw Modi Sawada running around meeting there. But two, remember Sergey Lavrov. Thank you very much. Sergey Lavrov. Thank you very much, Mr. Saran. Now, remember, 2015 on so, this is when No Stress CDS, my good friend, Ousman, my classmate, my batchmate, CDS went to Russia to sign an MOU for a military pact. An MOU. Because, you know, that's where it started. Then after have to be ready. To have a really security this thing, you have to ratify that in parliament. But it's signed with an MOU. Then what follows? Early part of 2016, Gambia opened an embassy. Embassy or started as a consulate or something like that. And Lamin Cham, No Stress. Is it? No, Lamin Manga, sorry. The DJ was sent there. Jammeh knows what he's working at. Because two things. Jammeh knows that any resistance to come, you would need the national, you need these UN Security Council. And who was a member there? Russia. to support you. Russia to support you. Jammeh knows that. He knows that he's going to do something very controversial if he won the election. Then he will need the support. 2, he knows that in order to have Russian to have a buy-in, he have to give something to the Russians. And what he gave to the Russians was that security pack. That security pack, the Russians would have access to our ports. The Russians would have a military, naval presence in our ports. The Russians need that for submarines and vessels to refuel and do other things. But again, it's a strategic position. The Atlantic's over, you have New York. To posture against America. At that time, people were not thinking that Putin was going to posture America. No. They thought that Putin was just this thing. But where are we now? Jammeh saw that. But if you do this high stakes, if your counterparts know what to do, when we analyze some of these moves, we have to work. This is when I said this is what brought our attention to State Department. When I say, hey, keep moving up to it, that you have to understand, there are so many things have transpired. When you start doing analysis, doing certain things, putting certain things, you think what the American embassy is made of. It's made of more spies than anything. Weekly, they have to write a report. Daily, they have to generate this and weekly report, monthly report, quarterly report. Go and read the WikiLeaks files to tell you how the embassies operate in gathering intelligence. That's why that night we got the contact from the State Department. It was a Thursday. I remember it was Thursday because I know what happened on Friday during the impasse. Chongan, Ibrahim Chongan, was invited by a member from the State Department in London, from the embassy. Called Chongan. Chongan didn't know where he got his number from. That's why I said, if you think these people, you have to know where. Chongan doesn't know where this man got his number from. Called him on his mobile and invited him to meet up at a place in London. And when they met, discussed the impasse, discussed Jammeh going without a fight. That was when, other things I came and said, I'll bet that Jammeh will go without a fight. Because I know how much information we had. Now, when that happened, at that period, late Oye Jallow, may his soul rest in peace, was in London because he went back before this trial. He was here for medical. Chongan called, OJ, and passed the phone to the guy for OJ. He said, look, that's opposition leader here. Talk to this and that. You see, before that, we had contacts. Because once we realized this thing Jammeh was playing for 2016, that's why we said, no, he have to go. Because if he didn't go, we trusted. No. And the Americans knowing that they will have to push their interests. Something else happened. Remember, it was the time Jammeh dumped Taiwan, and everybody was shocked. Why Taiwan? Taiwan was generous to Jammeh. We all know. And even if Jammeh was more strategic, he would have got more from Taiwan. Taiwan was training our scientists, training whatever, capacity building, money, loans, projects. Any project we wanted costed well. In fact, not costed well, because some of the things we were doing, taking from Taiwan, was not costed well, and Taiwan was doing it, desperate. Imagine people going to Taiwan, getting a sack of money, bringing it back. Desperate. Then why would, you see, when these events happen, that's what you ask. Why would dump Taiwan for China? Not because everybody's dumping Taiwan for China. Jammeh needed China at that time. Not because of the money. But because something China can deliver, Taiwan can't. One, national at the Security Council. Now, if you have two members at the Security Council, it type of help you a bit. But the second thing he needed from China, it's not about their military presence. You know, for Russia, military presence. It's for their infrastructure presence. That's why if anybody claimed that they negotiated, latter part, Jammeh initiated the Basse Bridge and all those bridges around Basse that the Chinese did. That was part of the condition to reconcile with China. Jammeh needed, at that time, what he's doing was trying to boost his popularity to the extent that when he wins the election and declares he wants to be the emir and have a parliamentary-based system that obviously he controls, Gambians would just accept it because of what they see as benefiting from Jammeh. This is why he dumped Taiwan for China. China does this better than anyone. In a year, they can transform the area. And obviously, China not for free. This is why China have the fishing rights, our Golden League and all those things. Give that poor performance to Jammeh as well. You see, this is what happened. That's where this thing happened and starting to put things together. But another aspect, I'm not coming to the oil, I'm going to the oil, but another thing is at Islamic State, the Islamic State project. You see, if you understand how politicians have used this in Pakistan, you know, Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad and others were one of the most metropolitan cities in Asia. I can tell you that. Hippies and every kind of things. But politicians, once they want what they want, in order to control, conservative, well, just as what Trump is doing, right-wing, or you call them conservative, whatever, they know how to engineer this, and they engineer that. Guys, I have to move from the light here because to get my charger, to put the charger on. If you just let me. There's not going to be much light, I think, here, but I need to finish this with the charger. Now, what happened there was, he was using the Islamic State as a vehicle to entrench himself, just as it happened in Pakistan. And it transformed. There are things that will put in place, and literally the laws will change, and Jammeh put that in place. Remember Fatima Singate said that in the TRRC. Yeah, they already put an exploration committee. Dr. Senghor was there, she was there, and others to look at the modalities, what system they're going to have. What I can tell you, what system they're going to have was Jammeh to be crowned, whatever name they're going to give to him, Amir or whatever, then parliamentary-based system will have parliamentary elections, but we know what that means, and the parliament powers and this thing, and the emir's powers, absolutely, that's the kind of monarchy you're going to have. I mean, the power would still be vested with Jammeh. This is what they were exploring. But it was not because of Jammeh wanted to empower Islam or Muslims. But Jammeh knows how that can be divisive, how that can be powerful. And we see people who came out to support that. Oh no, because of this is what Allah said. We have to be this. I mean, you think that person is the one doing Allah's job? No, it was strategy. Now, in order to get all this, you see how hard, again, Jammeh brought the OIC to the Gambia. How hard, he worked hard on that to bring it. Because that thing is going to do two things. That's why he prematurely announced the Islamic State and have the Zakir Naik and others to come in and they say, no. He was playing a game there. And the OIC was important to him because I can tell you, the one thing, if Jammeh wants something, he would try to get it done. The transformation of the infrastructure within the Banjul development area, greater area, would have win confidence again And the hotels, even the hotels and the hotel and everything was in, he was already working this thing. Amadou Samba and others were already working on that. He was already advanced. You know, with time he was walking around the beach, prepare to clear the beach bars and everything. He was advanced before even the approval. He saw the intention. He was intentional. If those development had happened for him, that would consolidate, because the rural and the urban, those development happened, and already his approval rating was not bad. We might even say he had over 50%, or near 50%. This is what, because he was going to do something more controversial. This was to shut down the international community, shut down every avenue for the Islamic State. But during the course of that mistakes, when he started to target the gays, we know that time, I'm not saying now, the gay liberal movement was very powerful. He touched the untouchables. I mean, the power of them in the international community, in the NGOs, in the State Department, in almost every area. You see, again, these are things. When you do the high stakes, you got to be careful. He thought by advocating all this, Jammeh is the most gay-friendly president we'll ever have. The gays were doing I have nothing against them. The gays were doing this wife hair, makeup, and others. We know. There are so many people he knows that they are gay. He have gay friends. He sit down with them. He eat with them. Yes, we are not gonna. We know each other. and there's something else we are not gonna get to, because we don't want to mind other people's life, private life. But I can tell you a fact: he was the most gay-friendly president we'll ever have, or leader. But he was using this rhetoric and everything. I can tell you a conversation he said in front of someone. When I said that, the person said, "Well, you are right." Because one of his associates was accused of gay activity with someone else. Jammeh said, turned around and said, no. And Jammeh said that person doesn't like light-skinned men. He liked them dark. Jammeh said that. So the kind of guy this guy is. He liked them dark. But we know who liked them light. Let's just leave it like that. Now, this was happening around him, provides his rituals and orders. But when he did it politically for this Islamic advancement thing, he kicked the bucket. And they came after him. Energized the international community and others. Now, if the OIC have happened when Jammeh was there, this was going to continue. But the other thing was to be coronated. We know the campaign was going. Many people were campaigning for that. The license, the Queen Jammeh, is it, and others. But again, we have the evidence that the Justice Minister said they were working and from the modalities to how to introduce it. We already have him probably playing Arabic news or whatever it is, campaigning for that. All this, getting Zakir Naik and others. It was coming out. But the other side of it was that it have to be what Jammeh was going to do, pass it to Parliament. Again, this is where, again, I said, whoever said that those vehicles given to the MPs was from an anonymous donor is a lie. I tell you, that's a lie. Those vehicles came from the GRA. That's Yankubada. Jammeh already ordered those vehicles after the elections. Just as he ordered one of those expensive vehicles to come for the celebrations, with vehicles that disappeared, and it's with Kalulu Wage in Senegal. I think it's a G-Wagon special design and stuff like that. Vanished. Now, what those vehicles were for, that's what the sweetener he would have passed it on anyway. But he just want to make it very popular to a sweetener to the MPs. He said that. Go and listen to it. Jammeh said that in 2016. I'm going to bring every MP will have a vehicle. I'll do this, I'll do that. When the vehicle came, what happened? The 4 vehicles that came, what happened? It was given to the GRTS. Who took it to the GRTS? Yankuba Daw of GRA. At times, Gambians, we watch things and we don't see them. Yankuba Daw of GRA took it. Who was the Minister of Information? Jao. Dear Jao. Who was the GRTS Managing Director? Silla. Ousman, Ibrahim Silla. I still have the picture in my mind. 2 of them standing there, the Davos, GRA Davos standing there, Yankuba and someone else, about 4 of them, and the vehicle presentation. If the vehicles were not from GRA, from Yankuba, what was Yankuba Dabo doing there? If the vehicles were not the ones already ordered. And you see, that's why we have to be careful. How did Yankuba Dabo order those vehicles and hiding it? Why Jammeh hiding it? Jammeh brought it to Yankuba Dabo, but why this government was hiding it? You see? When we spoke that time, they, oh, no. And it's interesting that Barrow is doing things just similar to this thing. This is, then when that happened, remember when the rest of the vehicle came at the ports, Ami Boyang Sissoko, Yankuba Dabo again. Yankuba Dabo at the center of it, walking around the vehicles and coming to sit. And Ahmad Ba and the chair leader. And thanking Yankuba Dabo. And all this kind of thing. The camera going to Yankuba Dabo. I said, God, why these people cannot see this? And then most don't know what's a lie. Yankuba Dabo. Guess what? What Barrow's doing there, Ahmad Ba, something they do this plain. Ahmad Ba said, when we go back to Parliament, we are going to vote I cannot remember this particular article, which remove the caveat Jammeh put there to protect himself. Because of Jammeh did not want down the line his MPs to cross carpet. That's why he said whoever cross carpets would have to lose their seat. That was the provision. But remember now, Barrow did not have an MP. UDP have MPs. Barrow did not have an MP, and Barrow knows what he was doing. That's why I said UDP did not see Barrow coming. When Ahmad Ba said that they're going to remove that provision, why do you think they were going to do it? So that they can have the loyalty of the MPs. Because MPs, if they knew that if they cross carpet, they will lose their seats, they have to go for election, they might not do it. But didn't say it. This is just to show you that this was what Jammeh was planning. Now that's what Barrow did, to give it sweetener to parliamentarians. Now let's come to the oil. And the oil was the ultimate reason Jammeh brought all this mechanism in place, in security and everything. Because after knowing 2016, as I said, the potential of the block that Jammeh doesn't want to talk about, the A4 or A5 we're talking, the block that was with Frank Timmins, the block that was with Africa Petroleum, the block that BP Petroleum took, the block that 2016, when I advocated to say that the reason British Petroleum would go to their stakeholders, to say that if we have Africa Petroleum renew their license, and we know it's a fact they have renewed their license by paying $500,000, which end up in Jammeh's account through the then junior Minister of Petroleum, Sirawali Ndaw. We had that in records. Jammeh will not talk about that well. But that well too, Senegal is on the other side. That well too, that's where Africa Petroleum, took from A4, took it from Africa Petroleum, give it to British Petroleum when Barrow came. But British Petroleum mysteriously returned the license. Is it the same reason we have in the Sangomar? Is it that because their interest groups on the other side are already advanced exploring? Now they don't want to waste their money to explore because they have what they want. But Jammeh knew that now these prospects are going to real. Up the farming in by BP, now that's why he developed all these strategies. Jammeh used to say that if the oil pumps, this would be the, and I can tell you that's a fact, not a fact that, the fact here is the amount of money that was going to come to Gambia. It's not the 5-10% revenue. Even that's it's the downstream, the other benefit, tax and the other form of tax, expatriates, the presence in the country, how its impact on economy. Our economy is small. All the businesses that will come out of it, and it would have transformed. But it would not have transformed under Jammeh, just as if it would not transform under Barrow. It would transform them. You see, all this land and everything Jammeh had, it would have been developed for Jammeh. Jammeh would have been the royalty. I told you, this is why he had that land at the GPMB area. All those businesses, he would have tapped in a lot for him to transform. That's why he said, thank God. In fact, it might have lead us to crisis because other interest groups will come in. That's why we say even it's a blessing. Even it's a blessing that Barrow is not accessing it, but it's going too late now. This Barrow cannot do it. We have to step in. And if we constitute the government, we should constitute, I can tell you then it will be a blessing for Gambians. Jammeh knew that if he had all that oil, he doesn't need any money from any international donors or anything. He can defy them and do whatever he likes. Then he would stay. And already remember, at the same time, what happened? Jammeh was introducing the daughter to the Minister of External Affairs. The daughter started to attend briefings. And that's how a dictator does. Probably God did not give him the son he wanted, but he gave him a daughter to take over from him. You see, these are the things we should remember. This is what Jammeh was working at. Guys, I think we have done so much on this video, but as I said, we should not take Jammeh's word. And finally, a point I failed to touch. One of the audios, Jammeh talk about Elementa, GPMB. Look, I'll tell you one thing. I am not a fan of privatization. But at times we have to come to reality. Because while I would not be a fan of privatization, that's if there's an effective government that can run the industry. But it's so sad that Gambian or African governments cannot run business industries. To the extent as well, too, government, for that matter, doesn't run industries well. Not only Gambia. We have seen it in the United Kingdom. But privatization, too, can be done to work better for the people. In the sense, in Britain, when privatization was done, shares were sold to citizens. There were shares that were reserved for citizens, and many citizens became middle class by buying shares, small amount, and that, went on British Airways, British Petroleum, British Telecoms, British, many other things. They made these things, and those companies did better, and they make more money, and they're investing in other areas, and so on and so on. Can be seen as a success. And Britain was known as the dead man of Europe. And because of this privatization and other and reforms, they came up, to where they were. And the service sector, the City of London, and everything grew to a desirable point that the economy, service economy, because the industries and everything after were not viable because of China and others, they have to change. British Leland, was to sold more auto productions and all those kind of things. And they opened the market for monopoly. They brought the Japanese companies and all, South Korean companies. They opened factories where factories have never been opened in this, in the northern part of the UK, not the middle. Even in the south, Dagenham and others, plants, jobs created and others. It works. When GPMB happened, many socialists, I call them, or revolutionary, or whatever it is, they went against the privatization. GPMB failed, now to be restored. Elementa was one of the most competent company to take it. And I think the privatization was done well. Elementa won the contract. And I know Elementa had a lot in the pipeline to transform the groundnut trade and everything else, production and so on, adding value. In fact, to show the things, then I left the army. I was working with a friend of mine, Bob Now, and we had a studio called Gumprint Studio. We were doing printing. And during the May, we had a picture with May His Soul Rest in Peace. Myself, Bob Now, and a cousin of Bob Now, something down, the name will come to me. We went to the Workers' Day to try to get business. And at that time, we met one of the Elemental directors. He was a black guy from Britain. His name was Mr. Campbell. We pitched our this thing, and he said, look, you come down and see us. Right now, we were already, we were going to print our sacks. This is the groundnut sacks in Spain. And this was, just imagine how many groundnut sacks for a small company, two young Gambians. And he said he would prefer to pass it to a local company than that. We had to go at the meeting. And that's when the disruption happened. Jammeh did not say what happened. He lied of how that case turned out. Gambia lost that case. Because Jammeh went and intervened by Baba Job. They forcefully took the company. Breaking contracts. You don't do that. And when an accused nonsense money laundering element, it was all nonsense. Because they wanted kickbacks. They went and gave the company to Libyans who could not control it. That the groundnut trade would have been revived, the Kalkuntawur and all those networks would have been revived. They had the capacity. They were the biggest. The groundnut farming could have been energized and everything else. That was the point of the privatization. If you can do something better, give it to someone who can do it better. Jammeh lied. And do you know another thing that broke even the Libyans? What sabotaged the Libyans? Jammeh. Jammeh went and sold one of the Libyans to the Americans. Do you remember those Libyans arrested, accused of terrorism and taken to Guantanamo Bay? And one of them was traveling from the United Kingdom to meet their partners in the Gambia. You know, when they went to the airport and the security services at the airport stopped the gentleman, they were not terrorists. It's just information they got. And when that person didn't have a British citizen, he have a permanent leave to remain, but he have family here. When the British realized that if they arrest him in the UK, the process to extradite the gentleman, especially around that time, many legislation were not changed. It was going to take ages and cost the British government a lot. They learned that he's going to Gambia. They delayed it and contacted the government, and that means them. Then this guy was let to travel to the Gambia, knowing that the minute he get there, they will arrest him. And that guy was arrested. The partners were arrested, held in comunicado, and extradition, taken out to Guantanamo Bay. Jammeh sold them. And all his patriotism and nonsense, Islamic, these are lies. Then Elemental took this case to court. Gambia lost. He's saying that I know law. I did just delusional. I did 2 months law in Bakau Depot, and then this I make sure. Even the lawyers telling me that, hey, if you have done law, we will be out of job. That's how delusional this man is. He lied. If I thought it was even World Bank that helped to settle the compensation. Apparently, he said it was the EU. He said it's the EU. Help us settle that compensation. It was going to cost our economy. He lied. We should not listen to this guy. Let him rot where he is. Let's go and get him and put him where he should rot. And all his supporters, that's how small-minded they are, that this delusional mind person can still influence them. And for other Gambians, for God's sake, let's not look at differences to allow this man to be relevant. If you are supporting, come out to say you're supporting him. If not, those supporting him are even better. For you to stay, to look as you are neutral, or you don't support him, but you use him for our divisive decision. Look, I love Gambia more than any country in my life. But we have to be realistic. There is no country that would maintain its territorial integrity forever. Countries evolved. United Kingdom evolved to where it is today. Gambia would evolve. And natural evolvement of Gambia, one day, I believe, the West Africa at least would unify. I'm a Pan-Africanist. But the truth of that is naturally, and to our interest, we should work together. In fact, the unification of Senegambia will happen if we control that, for our mutual benefit, not for Senegal to be anything more than we are. This is the facts. Don't allow anyone to change that. If Senegal is not treating us right, it's because of we don't have the leadership that should stand up to them. Standing up to them is not a military might. We will never build an army to resist any form of invasion or anything. But our integrity, our international laws, and our sovereignty, and in fact, Senegal would not dare do that for many other reasons. But if we allow these irresponsible statements and positions to be taken by people like Jammeh and other politicians, I mean, something will happen by default. Yes, some individual politicians, Senegalese might feel this, individual Senegalese might feel this, but the general Senegalese population will not feel that. Don't take what minority thinks to be a fact. But we have to take responsibility for that also. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a long one. I've not done a long one like this for a while.